is, right? Or like some variant of that.
Some variant of it. I
Okay.
I have more of a like one size fits all doesn't really work for relationships, so I'm more about individual choice.
Cool. Well, we'll explore it. Anyway, what's up, guys? We are live. So we have a really epic debate for you. We got Andrew Wilson, a Christian conservative, Jasmine Jafar, who I would say, what would you characterize yourself like?
Uh,
OnlyFans?
Liberal, center
Are
left
okay.
for sure.
Cool. Awesome. So this is going to be a really fucking epic crossover. The topic at hand is patriarchy good or bad for relationships? And we're going to get into it. We'll probably do an open panel afterwards. If you have any questions for any one of the guests, or you just want to speak your mind, just wait, and we will get you on later. Anyway, also just as a heads up, both of the people, everyone here is mildly sick, and my voice is kind of fucked up too. I don't know why. So, but yeah, anyway, I think it's going to be a good time. So, Jasmine, really quickly, I don't think my audience is too familiar with you. Can you give an introduction about yourself? Just say who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Jasmine Jafar. I am an OnlyFans creator. I'm also a licensed attorney, so I kind of had an unconventional career shift. I still do both, but OnlyFans is my full time job now.
Okay, interesting. And then Andrew, most of my chat knows who you are, but just give a quick intro anyway.
My name is Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible, fastest growing debate channel online to my knowledge. I do not have an OnlyFans because nobody would ever want to see that, and I don't blame them. So
You feel yourself
no,
short, Andrew.
no OnlyFans for me, unfortunately, I guess.
Okay, cool. All right. So anyway, so here's the format. Jasmine, you're new to my channel, so basically the way it works is I'm going to give you guys both a chance to make your opening statement. Andrew, since you initiated this, I think you should make your opening statement first, and then we'll have Jasmine go. We'll keep it 2, 3, 4 minutes. I'm not going to be a Nazi when it comes to the time, but something like 2 or 3 minutes opening statements. Then just going to get into the open panel version, so you guys can go at it. Since we only have one topic today, I'll let this kind of weir into any direction that it wants to. But if it gets too off topic, like we start talking about like fucking abortion or something like that, I'll probably bring it back. Generally, I will not be talking unless either the topic either we get way too off track or one person is not able to talk due to the unreasonable amount of interruptions. Otherwise, you guys will not hear from me much. It'll just be Andrew and Jasmine just going at it. Okay, Andrew, let's kick it off with your opening statement.
Okay. Thanks for humoring me, guys. I'm under the weather. I picked something up at a wedding I was at over the weekend, so bear with me as I get through this. I wrote my thoughts down on this to make it as easy for my opponent to disagree as she can. If we are discussing any aspect of the always nebulously defined and ever elusively evil patriarchy, which has been oppressing and being mean to the strong and independent women of the world since history began, I think it's important for us to outline a few universal truths. The first truth, as I have often argued, is that absent enforcement, society fails to function, force being the ultimate arbiter of dispute, and will always be, and will, without fail, as a society, and this is any society, they'll always appeal to it. One of the necessities of reality is that force is necessary to enforce, which is why it's written in the word enforce itself. Men will always, descriptively speaking, have a monopoly on force. This is an unavoidable consequence of descriptive reality. Women will always have to appeal to men for their rights as they are absent the quality of force. This is true both at the micro level and the macro level. Force will be used at both levels to enforce the will of women, and that will always come from men. This imbues men with a greater responsibility to society than is present for women. As for the perpetuation of humanity, it's necessary for men to provide some sustainable condition for both women and men to thrive. With such privilege comes the almost necessary condition that homes should be run in compliance with this descriptive reality, as the responsibility for the security of the woman is ultimately going to be in the hands of a man for any ultimate redress. Be that securing women's rights through warfare, a justice system, or even a revolution, not to mention just allowing them to sustain via infrastructure, that responsibility is his alone because he's the only person who can do those things. She can't. There will always be some exceptional women who can also do something like this, but they are an insignificant minority to the point where in many industries, they might as well not even exist in them at all. But even the exception will ultimately have to appeal to men to enforce their will, as they also cannot do so. They never could, and they never can. Egalitarianism is a lie. It's always been a lie. And ultimately, because of this, security, even inside the home, is going to fall onto a man. Should such circumstances in society arise, they should always be in charge of the household and make decisions for the household, as the ultimate societal ramifications will almost always fall on him to repair. The ability to use force to enforce, and I'm almost done, thanks for bearing with me. The ability to use force to enforce will puts us in a different category than women altogether. Not better, at least not morally better, but nonetheless very different in what can be accomplished either in a solo aspect or as a collective. Women cannot resist men with force, even at the micro level. And so will always, once again, they will appeal to men to do it for them. They have to. Why they have a say so in the matters of either politics or the way a household is run outside of male permission is actually baffling to me. I don't even really understand it. It seems incoherent. And with that, I'll pass the floor over.
Before we get into Jasmine, I just want to point out one thing. Andrew got sick at the wedding. So moral of the story is clearly don't get married, obviously. Okay, all right, Jasmine, you're up.
All right. I'm also severely under the weather. So if you've seen me in the past super fast and like energetic, you definitely won't be seeing that today. I get like clogged up even from talking too long. I also did not write out an opening statement or anything, but my general position on this is that relationships, there is not one size fits all. So the premise of, is it healthy or is it unhealthy? I think that's dependent on the relationship, and the dynamics of a relationship and the boundaries of a relationship have to do with the two people in the relationship. We are billions of people in this world. We all come from different cultures. We have different values. We have different personalities. And so having this one size fits all doesn't really work. I also think that there's a reason that in more advanced countries like this, the United States, that we are seeing less stringent gender roles. And I think that's a reflection of our times. I don't think the force argument of men would need to enforce rights is a strong one. I think by that metric, kids don't have rights. The elderly doesn't have rights. We set up our system in the way we did for a reason. We have 3 branches of government. Congress makes laws. The executive branch executes them, and the Supreme Court legislates them, or evaluates them. And I would say, like, if any women on the Supreme Court, by your metric, would have to have they would have more of the responsibility, like you're saying, because they have more of a voice in society. So I think these like post-apocalyptic, like if all the men turned against all the women, like, it's not a reflection of reality that all the men are going to turn against all the women and we're going to live in like Ken's Mojo Dojo Casa house. Like, I just don't think that's reflective of our current society. And oh my God, I'm so sorry. Sorry, lost my train of thought. But get this out too. So yeah, that's basically it. I don't, and I think that there's a reason that in so many relationships that we're seeing, things are more equal, and it's not one person has more power or authority over the other.
Jasmine, just to really quickly summarize your position. So if someone asked you, is patriarchy good or bad for relationships, would you generally be leaning towards bad or good?
I think it depends. I think there are certain people that lean more traditional. Like, there are a lot of women, and I think that's a great, if you are a woman and you want to be in a traditional relationship, you want the man to lead you, I think that's great. You can go on. I believe people can be happy with different values and with different lifestyles. I also think there are certain women, I would put myself in this category, who aren't happy in those kind of relationships. And I think there's a reason that a lot of women are gearing away from that and choosing to be in relationships that are more equal. There are also a lot of men who don't want to lead and don't want that traditional relationship either. So I am a big proponent of finding someone that aligns with your values. And I think that people with different values can go off and be happy in their own right. I think trying to pretend that everyone is one way and that one way works for everyone is a really juvenile way to look at things, because the world is obviously far more nuanced than that. It's not that black and white.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's get into the open panel. So have at it, guys.
Yeah, so let me start with the crux of one of your false positions here. You said that if men were the rights givers, the elderly wouldn't have rights or kids wouldn't have rights, but that doesn't actually make sense. Why wouldn't the elderly have rights or kids have rights if men are the rights givers?
Well, my point is that if you're just going off who has rights based off who can enforce them, who has the brute force, then any time where somebody doesn't have the brute force, so you could even say Christians, my parents are immigrants from Iran, Christians in the Middle East don't have rights because they can't enforce them because there's far more
Yeah,
brute
that makes
force
my point,
happening.
though, not your
What was
point.
that?
That makes my point, not your point. So if ultimately you're saying that enforcement is done, and it's going to be done in even these nations that you are talking about where Christians are oppressed, let's say, that's being done by men. It can't
Yeah,
be done by women. It's an impossibility for it to be done by women because they don't have the capacity to utilize force collectively to make men do what they want. So if you bring up the elderly and you bring up kids having rights, for instance, they can have rights because men give them rights, but men can collectively take those rights away. And you say that that's not, it doesn't make sense, or it's not reflective of reality. And then instantly you point to places where it makes sense and is reflective of reality right this second. So this makes no sense to me.
Wouldn't you argue that Christians like have rights though, or wouldn't you argue children have rights?
Nobody has any rights. Rights are completely fictitious and made up unless you can give me a justification for a right. Can you give me a justification for where a right
I
comes
think
from?
rights are just a reflection of moral intuitions that most people have, especially if you're talking about universal basic rights like the right to live. I think most people agree that 5-year-olds shouldn't be killed just because they can't enforce their rights. Yeah, we could all, or men could all.
So then they're not real because intuitions can change.
I mean, you could say that. And now we're getting into a question of moral philosophy. So I don't think that just because it's a super complex question, where do rights come from, right? Super complex.
It's not super complex. It's super easy. The justification is, where does rights come from?
Can I finish my point? So I'm saying that just because there's a complex question, like if I was to say the meaning of life is having nice things, and you were to say, no, I don't think what that is. And I'm like, well, what is the meaning of life? And you were like, well, and if you don't have an answer to it, that doesn't mean that my position is
That's because
correct.
that would be a fallacious argument. I haven't.
Let her just finish.
She just finished. I didn't make a fallacious argument. I made an actual argument that was not fallacious. And I'm asking you again, you say, I believe that there's rights, and what rights are intuitions, moral intuitions, which are extended out to people. I ask you, those intuitions can change, right? And you say yes. Well, then it sounds like rights are fictitious. They don't exist.
I think
They're
we're
not
getting into
real.
morality, right? And as an atheist, from your intro, you seem not to be. I'm not here to argue about objective morality or an objective set of rights, right? I think a lot of those are based on our moral intuitions. And as a society, as we've evolved, I don't think we malfunctioned evolutionarily in 2023 in societies where we're not under threat of war or poverty, right? As we go higher up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have our basic needs, food, shelter, etc. We're seeing that we're not at war with our neighboring villages. No guy needs to know how to use.
What does that have to do with rights? It's like, let's back up, because you're moving way far away from the goal here. I'm asking you specifically, women's rights, in your estimation, are not real. Is that right? Yes or no?
If by that, then no rights are real.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So no rights are real.
So how does that prove your
Is that true or false? I'm just trying to get clarification.
I guess if you get down to the crux of it, are there rights that are independent of human moral intuitions? No. But I don't know what that has to do with boys versus girls in this world. Like, to me, this is just.
I didn't ask you if they're independent of human intuition. I'm asking you if rights are an objective fact, an objective reality, or not.
Rights are an objective reality because of basic moral intuitions that most people, the vast majority of men and women, agree with. Now, yes,
that would not be an objective reality. That would not be a descriptor for something which is objectively real. A tree is objectively real. Rights are conceptualized. Okay, you're conceptualizing something based on another conception of how people feel about a thing, right?
But I'm agreeing with you, but that means that there's either no rights or that there are rights that are based on moral intuition.
So there's no rights.
How this is a male versus female.
I'm asking you to just make the clarification, yes, that there's no rights then.
There are no rights in the same way that there is a tree. You're right.
Okay, so there's no rights. So since there's no rights, if you were going to explain to somebody that they had a right, for instance, you have the right that women have to like be equal with men, right? Yes. Where does
a child has the right
what makes that true? What makes it true that absent force that's actually true?
are institutions that we've created, right?
Those
And
use
the
force.
more advanced countries, the ones
Those
that
use
actually
force.
respect human rights, are not the ones that are really enforcing it.
Those
through.
use force. Those all those institutions you just said, they are all use force. Every single one of them uses force. Every
So,
one.
but any woman in Congress or the Supreme Court has more power than you ever have,
No,
right?
they don't. They only have the
Can I
power
finish? I
of
feel like you
enforcement.
interrupt me every 3 seconds. Am I crazy? Like, can I finish?
Okay, but
I
try to
just
keep
feel like this
point.
is a very, like, it's almost cute to me because, like, your ideology has no power in media. You have no power in the corporate world. You have no power in education, academia. You hardly even have power on social media platforms, which I don't agree with. I don't think you should be deplatformed. But up until this year, I mean, even YouTube CEO was a woman. She could have unilaterally taken away your right to even be on YouTube.
What does that have to do with anything? If the
Those-
descriptive
those
reality
are
is just to say,
actual-
hey, things aren't favoring your worldview, that's not a fucking argument. Give me an
If
argument.
you wanted to, for instance, grant the right for preborn babies to have life, how would you go about that? Do you go in the street enforcing it through brute force, or do you have a system that you have to go through that doesn't involve brute force at all?
Right.
And
So
you have to
ultimately, so this is my point, right? So I'm glad that we can get to the crux of this. How do we do this? Well, we can look at the world as it exists currently so that we can look at the different modes of how this is done. Here in this country, in fact, there have been revolutions, there have been civil wars, there have been civil conflicts over these perceptions, even though it's supposedly axiomatic that we have rights in this nation, which we clearly don't. If you look in other places in the world, that's exactly true as well. They don't have rights inherent because there are no such thing as inherent rights, including women's rights. They don't have any rights absent enforcement. You point to institutional power, like, for instance, the Supreme Court. You say these women have more power. No, they don't. They only have as much power as the enforcement arm of men allows them to have, period. And they'll never have anything external to that. They can't. It's impossible.
Again, I don't understand how this is like you're like, if these post-apocalyptic circumstances where
these
all
aren't
the men
post-apocalyptic.
It is though, because that's the thing. Right now, I asked you if
so all the countries right now where women have no rights are in a post-apocalypse.
Because you keep interrupting me. Can you answer my question if you're just going to talk the whole time
Answer.
anyway? My question to you is, if right now you wanted to give rights to preborn babies, how would you go about doing that?
Right now, me personally, I would use a legislative process. However, I would also lobby for a collective of men. And this is what I do now. The more that you lobby for that collective of men, ultimately, you'll be able to consolidate power based on the fact that ultimate force could be used if necessary. This is why
and how's that going for you? I'm just saying, like, this idea of, I'm going to get these men to come in and say, we're going to do this through force.
That's not an argument. Like, don't you understand that you're not making arguments? You can't say that Saudi Arabia is post-apocalyptic. Is it a post-apocalyptic nation?
I agree.
What happened? Hang on. No, stop. Let me finish. You say these are only post-apocalyptic. I mean, the apocalypse is not coming to the United States. These nations right now exist where women have no rights. Where was their apocalypse? Where did the meteor come down and destroy everything and it's Mad Max in the streets and there's oil cans? I don't get it.
The nations that use brute force to give people rights are the ones where it seems like people have the least.
Ours does that.
With the institutions, like
ours uses brute force.
You prefer that kind of thing. If you're trying to get a group of men to collectively use force to give people rights in the United States, it's clearly not working for you. Your side.
No, it is working. Listen,
you should move to Saudi Arabia.
I'll explain this. If we control the institutions, we control the force. It's the same process. Don't you understand that? Wherever the institution is that controls the power of men's force, right? We will always win. All the things that you're pointing at are just the power of collective men using force. All the institutions, the military, law enforcement, that's all a collection of men utilizing force. So if you're talking about institutions, what we're really doing is we're seizing the collective power of using force. Yes, it is true. Absent force, they have no power.
We're in 2023. As things evolve, as technological advances continue to come about, it's not even in war anymore. It's not a battle. It's not sheer numbers, right?
Yes, it is.
Scientific. Oppenheimer was just the biggest film of the year.
Yeah. You're so right. There wasn't just this massive attack that happened with guys skydiving in with old parachutes and machetes, who just went into a first world nation that had an Iron Dome missile system, were able to circumvent it and kill hundreds of people with their primitive technology.
Really quick,
My point is,
I'll let you go right after this. So real quick, I want to give you guys a heads up. We're getting pretty off topic. I'll give you guys 2 or 3 more minutes to explore this further because you're having a good discussion, but then I'm going to bring it back to the initial topic. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Okay. I feel like this was his whole argument, though. I don't even know what it necessarily has to do.
It's part of the crux of my argument.
Let me try to bring it back. So even if you want to say that as a collective whole, that men, if they decided to tomorrow all fight against all the women, there's a battle of the sexes. This is your scenario.
A straw man.
I would still say that I don't know how what you're looking at a relationship. A relationship generally has 2 people. Sometimes it has more. How come in this dynamic, because men could collectively take away rights from all the women, that a man should have the authority in the household?
Because the question becomes then.
I don't think it's even
trying to answer your question.
reality. Like I said, in countries like the United States, where we're not under as much of a threat of war and all that stuff and poverty, and we don't have as stringent of gender roles, women are choosing and men are choosing to not have their relationships be molded in this way. Why do you think that is?
Because I think that the institutional power right now favors progressives, but it won't always be true. And I also think that we will see policy even in my lifetime of 1-vote households. And I think that patriarchy has always been inevitable because it's a descriptor for reality. And feminism is not a descriptor for reality. It pushes away from the descriptive reality, which is patriarchy. And the reason that you can't get away from this descriptive reality with feminism is because you always will have to rely on men's force to secure whatever feminist agenda that you might have. Always. There's no way to circumvent that. So when I'm talking about how does this move over to the micro level with individual relationships, it's because I want to see as a prescription for society a single household unit. If they vote, fine. Okay. But I don't think that everybody should vote. That's one. I definitely don't think women should ever vote. That's 2. And I think that all votes, even if you're married, should only be on a household basis. And even then, after it's with public service, you claim that this is outside the realm of possibility, but it's clearly not, as long as institutional power and authority is achieved, just like you communists, well, maybe not you, but just like communists did 60 years ago, we can do the exact same thing and institute the policies that favor us and our worldview.
That's wonderful. I don't know how, I don't think that will happen. Each generation is getting progressively more progressive. And this, I don't even know what this voting system that you have in mind that's not been seen here is supposed to come to fruition.
It has been seen here. Do you think we're using the same voting system in inception?
I let you finish.
Go ahead. That's fair. Go ahead.
But I'm sick right now, so I'm not trying to.
Go ahead. It's fine.
But my point is that I still don't get, even if we had your system where it's 1 unit, 1 vote, how does that actually affect the inner dynamics of a relationship?
Because women won't have rights.
They won't authority over the woman just because do you want them to have that authority by force in the relationship because he can overpower her physically? Is this the point?
Well, no, wait. That's a straw man.
Take away your rights?
Yeah, so I'll answer your question. It's actually a straw man. All he needs to have is enforcement. He doesn't have to use force. Right now, for instance, women favor force of men, right? If you're going to get a divorce, for instance, or something like that, and the husband said, no, I don't want a fucking divorce, right? He can't do anything about it because other men with a nice shiny hat, a badge, and a gun will come haul his ass to jail, right? That's how it works. That's enforcement. So when you're talking about this, even on an individual scale, right, at a micro scale, yes, each individual household should also be an instillment of the larger governmental body. It should be a reflection of that. And it should be patriarchal in nature because it's part of the descriptive reality of how the world works.
But you just said the descriptive reality of right now is that we have the institution. So it's not a descriptive reality of the world right now. Like you just said,
no,
in
it
this
still
dynamic,
is.
People are going to come and pull them away. Those men are not all on like one team and then women are all on one team, right? So if you're talking about individual relationships, why the fuck should someone like me be like, oh, you know what? I'm in a relationship with you and we have all the institutions. We have all the power. Most men are on my side, but me and you should still have this dynamic because in Andrew's hypothetical future
why would we care what the people without rights say? I don't get it. Why would we care what the people without rights say? Why would we care? No, so if you have no voting power, why would we care what you say?
One of the foundational pillars of our country is freedom and the freedom to live your life how you
see fit. It was not for women. Where did the
Yes,
freedom for women
and
come in for the
as we
foundation of our
progress,
country?
we also
Exactly.
used to, yeah, if you go farther back in our evolutionary trajectory, we also used to rape and kill and all that stuff, and it was fine.
No, we
As
still
we've
do.
evolved,
Still
our
do.
moral philosophies have also evolved.
Our
As what we
moral
talked about
philosophy has
earlier.
not
They're not
no.
stagnant, and my moral philosophy is winning. So if my moral philosophy is winning, I guess I can make the argument
Your
that
moral
right now,
philosophy
in
is to
2023,
win.
relationships should
Wait,
look
wait,
the
hang
way
on,
I
hang
say
on.
they should look.
What do you
Unlike
mean?
though, I'm not
What do you
saying
mean your
that.
moral philosophy is to win?
What do you mean by moral? No, I'm saying right now we have the power in the institutions. We have the enforcement arm. So by your standard, if we have the enforcement arm, then should relationships be because the way I see fit?
They already are. Because
They're
of the
not, though.
descriptive
People-
reality that men are enforcing the will of a bunch of stupid feminists don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And that can change easily. And it has changed
okay,
in the
I
past.
mean-
Not only has it changed in the past, but you did not start out with the right to vote. Women didn't start out with the right to vote in this nation. It was never an entailment that the axiom that all men were created equal was supposed to apply to people who couldn't even enforce their own rights. Why in the world would our founders ever want that? They wanted nothing to do with that.
You are very dismayed about the state of our world right now. But the question is patriarchy unhealthy or healthy for relationships? I'm not asking back in 1800s. It's about today as far as I'm concerned. And my thing is,
oh yeah, we can
there's
never look
not
at
one
history
type
to
of
find out about the health.
There's not one type of relationship right now that I can sit here and say this is the way it should be. We have all different kinds of relationship in this country. We have polyamorous relationships that are becoming more and more common, and those relationships people seem to show just as much, if not more, in some studies, happiness than other relationships.
And we want to see those gone.
Relationships should be about people who want to be together, enjoy their lives, be happy, be healthy, not hurt other people. So
why should they be about that? Why should I accept that this is axiomatically true, that relationships should be about whatever feminist bullshit you want them to be about? Why should I accept that that's true?
Well,
why should I accept that it's about egalitarianism and fairness and awesomeness and open relationships and OnlyFans? Why should I have any at all acceptance that that's the way things should be as an ought claim? Why should they be that way?
You could, if we're going to get into the aughts and all that, but our country was founded on secularism and freedom. Those were two foundational pillars. So you could take it up with the founding fathers who were of your gender. They did not decide that we want to have our society be framed around your Christian values.
Yes, they did. Which is why it was. You're lying through your teeth.
Why do we have the establishment? Why shall Congress make no law? I remember the exact wording.
Which favors one religion over another religion. That's not secularism.
No, it doesn't say one religion.
Let me show you. Yes, it does. Read it. Read it.
Okay, I'm going to pull it up right now.
It says Congress shall make no law favoring an establishment of religion. It's just saying we can't favor one religion over another.
It's just religion in general.
No, it's just one over another. We can't favor one religion over another.
Does it say one over another? I'm going to pull this up. Somebody tell me. Does this, because they should take away my law degree then, because I do not remember it saying one.
By the way, I actually think we're saying the same thing, just with different language.
Okay, no, I'm right. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, period. There is nothing
so they can't. So they can't say this religion's better than this one, right?
They can't say religion and establish religion in general. It says of religion.
So then they can't say one religion's better than another religion, right?
They can't say one religion should rule anything.
Right. So one religion can't be better than another religion.
It can't be better than atheism either.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's an establishment clause saying that they can't favor a single religion. That's it.
Yes, and as we know,
now I can show you, but I can show you where your logic here is flawed. Your logic is flawed because people right now, if they're in government, can't they make policy based on their religion, their religious values?
They can't. For instance, like we've seen a bunch of Supreme Court cases where they tried to do things like, let's say in school, you're not even required to say the Pledge of Allegiance and shit in school anymore because you're not allowed to make a law like that. You're not allowed to make a law forcing people to follow a particular.
It's not my question. My question specifically is, can't your morals right now, if you're in government, be informed by your religion? Thus, the way you're voting is informed by your religion.
Absolutely. But
okay, then
no, let me finish.
Then if there's an entailment there.
The Bible says not to kill. Well, let me finish. The Bible says not to kill, and so also our laws are not to kill. So those are Christian values. I think those are, like I said, moral intuitions that most of us have. And again, your values are not succeeding here. They haven't succeeded for a long
That's
time.
not an argument.
And you constantly think that things are going to turn good for you, but they're
That's
not
not an
turning. Like
argument.
I said,
You
we
just
have
keep
all
pivoting.
the power in media, in the corporate world. You don't even necessarily have a right to be on YouTube.
That's
and
not an argument. Don't you understand? You're not making an argument. You're just saying,
is patriarchy
oh, well, okay, fine. Well, then anywhere else on planet Earth where that's not the case, that's not the case. You see how that it's not an argument to just say, but right now the establishment favors us. That does nothing to get us closer to what ought be or how we move towards what ought be.
Say, for instance, in Iran, where my parents are from, you couldn't have I can't be there. I can't have this lifestyle. I can't have the kind of relationship I want over there. It's not allowed. So over there, I guess patriarchy has to be the default for relationships, and they probably should follow it unless they want to, have consequences.
What does this have to do with anything?
It does, because in the United States, where we have freedom and our institutions aren't putting forth your values, can you explain to me why in modern society right now, where these values are not at the forefront, they don't have any power anywhere, why should two random people on the street follow them?
So you ought to follow these values or move to make these values correct, because you actually have an imperative, a duty to make these values correct. There's an actual categorical duty to do this.
And where are you getting that duty?
Well, this would come from my moral framework, the thing that you don't have. So the moral framework that you just got done telling me is my moral framework is winning. That's what you said your moral framework is.
I did not say my moral framework is winning. I just said my moral framework is winning.
Well, what is your moral framework? Why should we follow feminism? Why is it good? Why is it good that we follow egalitarianism and feminism and all this? Why is it a good thing to do that? Why?
Because, like I said, it's the natural evolution and the natural direction that our society is going, as gender roles are not needed as much anymore. There's a reason. We didn't just
the naturalist fallacy.
Human beings have been adapting to our circumstances all this time, and even in the same time period, you can see
that's
countries
a fallacy.
People that aren't struggling, people that aren't under the threat of war, these countries that are more technologically advanced, the skills a man needs to strive in today's society are not brute force. Their intellect, emotional intelligence, the ability to communicate, all of those things that are not gender specific are how you succeed in today's society.
Okay, so I'm going to respond because you just used a fallacy. You just appealed to nature, literally. Now, I can say,
appealing to nature.
No. If I say it is the natural occurrence of X, right? That's not an appeal to nature because it's a descriptor. I asked you for why ought we do this, and you said because it's natural. That's literally the definition of an appeal to nature fallacy. That's what you just did. So I'm going to ask you again, and maybe this time you give me an answer without a fallacy. Can you tell me, stop. Can you tell me why it is that we ought to adhere to feminism and we shouldn't do our damnedest to move through the system in order to repeal it?
Okay, let me tell you, because the equality, the political, social, and whatever equality of the genders right now is the best way for a society to flourish. And the societies that are flourishing have more of these kinds of values. Obviously, you want when both people, I remember I was accidentally in your thing with Destiny and you think women should be out of the workforce and all that. I disagree with that. I think our society, one of the reasons it is flourishing is because we have, instead of eliminating half the minds in our society, half of the people in our society, those people are also able to contribute to society, right? We have a 21-year-old woman right now making rockets at NASA. Why shouldn't she be able to do that? That is better for our society to have her brain also making rockets than to have no women in that at all. So it is actually better for society, for both the genders, to have these kinds of rights. And I think that's also reflected in relationships.
I see.
Like I told you, everyone has to do what I want.
So then any place then where patriarchy is instilled, as long as the population is flourishing, like, for instance, let's say they're able to reproduce themselves, which our society can't. I would say that's a huge mark of flourishing. Shouldn't we default to that because your standard for how you morally run, the society is just based on whether or not they're flourishing? That's your moral standard.
To run a society is not by putting your moral, is all of us following. And
don't tell me what you should. Don't tell me that your morality tells you that you shouldn't follow my morality. Just tell me what your morality is.
Right.
You just got done saying to me,
I don't have an objective reality.
Let me finish.
I don't have an objective morality. I don't have a
let me finish. I'm almost done. And then you can respond. Relax. Okay. You just got done saying to me that the only objective standard you have for morality if in this instance is that the society is flourishing.
That's
Our
not
society,
what I
you
did not say
did.
that's the only
Our society literally cannot even reproduce itself, and yet the patriarchal societies can. That's clearly flourishing by your estimation. So why shouldn't we go to that under your moral framework, your cuckoo moral framework?
You can sit there and you can hope and pray that those societies overtake ours, but they're not. They're clearly not. So I'm sorry you're unhappy with the state of things here.
Your society is not reproducing.
No, I let you finish. I let you finish this time. I'm saying that just because, like I said, just because it's a very complex question, you're asking about unless you have an appeal to an authority, which is also a fallacy, an appeal to authority, which is your God about how morality should work. If you don't have that, it's a difficult question. It's like, what is the meaning of nice? What is the meaning of life? What is consciousness? Making up an answer because you don't know, like, God, I don't want to get into a religious debate. I'm willing to, but I don't think that's the topic here. Does not make it a good answer just because you don't know and you make something up. I could say, well, I got my morals from this unicorn book.
So the concept is just too complex for you to engage with it. That's what you're saying to me. The concept is just far too complex. No. There's just too many dynamic moving parts for us to really get into what makes society thrive and why patriarchy is bad.
Moral philosophy, there's a reason for thousands of years we have had so many philosophers. This has been written on to the point that none of us in our lifetime could read everything there is to read about moral philosophy.
You can't tell me you can't tell me what your moral standards are without a thousands-year-old dialogue, thousands of years old dialogue. You're
looking at the 1,000-year-old dialogue to get your morals. You're looking at scripture from 1,000 years ago.
So I completely agree. What does it have to do with you? So I'm asking. I've already explained it.
Because you decided to believe something based on insufficient evidence. And again, I don't want to get into the belief of God, but because you decided that, I don't have a thing. Okay, let me just adopt this book that book doesn't have evidence for it being the objective standard of truth. You have an easy thing to go to. So your debate tactic is just to tell other people, I don't know, right? The God of the gaps argument. I don't know is not a reason to believe in something, right? So I'm saying there are a lot of people, a lot of atheists, Sam Harris.
Which part of the argument was the God of the gaps?
To answer this question, can we get an objective morality without God? If you want to get into that, we can get into that.
Not even asking for that.
That's not a smoking gun here.
Why won't you just listen to what I'm asking you? Right? I think you just don't understand what I'm asking you, and so you're kind of flailing. Just listen, okay? Just listen to what I'm saying to you. I just want to know why we should follow, why we ought to follow this egalitarian mindset, which has led to our society literally not being able to reproduce itself. Whereas the patriarchal societies, which we can clearly see, and you have conceded are patriarchal, can do so.
Can we pull up, because I thought birth rates were kind of declining in all kinds of countries, whether and some of them are patriarchal as well. From what I've seen.
Yeah, so I'll quickly. Yeah, so birth rates are declining in every, I believe, Western country besides Israel, where it's going up
because of in vitro fertilization.
But is it also not declining in any of the other countries?
No, it's on a much smaller decline, and many of them are going up. And most of this is due to the religious backing and the patriarchal systems which are in place, which tell women stay home and take care of your family. Don't go work a job 60 hours a week because that's insane.
Can you check on this, Alex, about because I'm sure it's declining in all the Western countries, but isn't it also declining in the majority or in a lot of other patriarchal countries?
For example, in Russia, it's declining, and Russia is definitely not a Western country.
Declining at a far. It's declining at a.
Going up is India,
patriarch. Caste system.
I think
you'll see it in Middle Eastern nations,
countries like Philippines and stuff like that.
You'll see it in African nations.
I think if I were to look this up for every country you can say it's declining in the West, I could probably pick another one that's not patriarchal where it's not, or where it's also declining. But I don't have that in front of me.
Not at the same rates. Let me explain to you just how bad this problem is.
Why is it declining at all over there?
I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to answer your question. Okay. Take South Korea, for instance. After it became westernized and it brought in egalitarianism, right? It has the lowest birth rate, to my knowledge, of any place on planet Earth. It's so bad that in 150 years, there's not going to be a Korea. It's not even reproducing itself. It's under the 1. It's under the 1. It's like 0.90, right? We need to be at like 2.2, something in there, at least 2.1. Right. And we're way under that threshold, and we are nosediving. And this has a lot to do with the fact that career women are focusing on career first, They're focusing on all of these things first before they focus on family.
So what do you
Historically,
think?
that's never happened. And I think that the best way to deal with that issue so that we can have a human race, because that sounds great to me, would be for us to institute some types of policies which, once again, favor the patriarchal system. And I think that that's inevitable anyway.
Okay, so my question here is that what do you think of all the data? So there's obviously conflicting ideas on whether we're even overpopulated, whether the birth rate declining is even good or bad. I'm not even going to get into that because I honestly haven't read too much into it. But I have read a lot about the studies on happiness and having children, and it actually seems to have a very bad effect on your happiness and your marital satisfaction when you have children.
So
and
I guess nobody should have children?
I'm not saying nobody should have children, but I'm just saying clearly the default of having children may not even be the best.
So let me ask you for an entailment here. Let's assume for a second, hypothetically, that 80% of women were miserable after they had children. That was like the default. 80% of them just became miserable. You realize that if 80% of women checked out of reproduction, there would be no more human race. Would you say that that's okay? You say that that's fine?
I think that there is, obviously, for a long time, there was a time where everyone said, oh my God, there's too many people. And now there are people
just
like,
answer
oh
my
my
question,
God, there's too
please.
little people. I do believe in, like I said, I don't think we evolutionarily malfunctioned in 2023. And actually, the upper ranks of society are the only ones, the higher socioeconomic status, educated women are actually the ones that are having more.
You haven't answered my question. Answer my question. And I'll repeat the hypothetical to you. Let's say for a second, in this hypothetical, 80% of women who had children were totally miserable as the side effect of having children. Would you say then that they shouldn't have children, even though that would clearly end humanity? Would you say that that's okay?
I would never tell someone that they should have children to serve humanity.
Okay, so then if humanity goes extinct tomorrow, you don't give a shit.
It's not going to go extinct tomorrow because people are making personal choices about whether or not to have kids. And if it did, even if it did, I would never force people to have children.
Yeah, but did you not listen to the entailment of your own hypothetical? The hypothetical is to test your morality. And the morality for you is that if the human race is gone tomorrow, you don't give a shit.
My morality is not based on how to keep the human race going on and on and on and on. I care about the people here, their wants, their needs, their desires. Like I said.
So hedonism. It's just hedonism for you. It's not about cross-generation. It's not about keeping the human race intact. It's not about keeping people on this planet. It's just about pure fucking hedonism.
I support people doing what generally makes them happy as long as they don't harm other people. Now, you're saying they're harming future generations by not having kids. Now, I am not going to force people or tell people that they should do something so that in future generations that the race will continue to go on. Again, good for you.
So let it go extinct, right? So let it go extinct.
I look forward to it working because it's been failing for a really long time, and each coming generation agrees with you less and less and less. I know you're trying to get your band of men. Good for you. Again, I'm not worried about it because all your hypotheticals are like
each generation where. Hang on. I want you to understand actually how stupid what you're saying is. I just got done telling you, and you agreed, that all Western nations are on the decline for their own birth rate, which means their reproduction. They're not reproducing themselves. And all those patriarchal nations that you hate they are reproducing. It's all Western nations. Name me one that isn't.
No. I'm saying it's not all patriarchal nations.
The patriarchal nations, for sure, though, are reproducing themselves. At least enough
we're
of
not
them.
Reproducing at all.
At least enough of them, for sure. Though the Western nations are not. And so you say, I can't believe how incredibly ignorant a plan would be that you think that patriarchy will reintroduce itself into society by necessity after you get done arguing that we're below replacement rates in the West and can't even reproduce ourselves. Then wouldn't it be a necessary entailment then that patriarchy is inevitable?
If it's inevitable, I'm not seeing a sign of it coming back. Where is it? You're saying the birth rates are declining.
I just told you the sign of it.
Yeah, you're saying the birth rates are declining. You're saying that clearly this is failing. You're saying clearly women getting all these rights sucks. Clearly relationships shouldn't be like this. So why are you the only person that sees this? Are you just the one that's losing the rest of the world?
I will say that the message is ahead of its time, right? But the decline in the birth rates has been, people have been sounding the alarm for a while. It's just been ignored because
Are there people
feminists,
who are also been
because
selling the alarm
dumbass feminist propaganda and dumbass feminists who say stupid shit like, I don't care, even if it made 80% of women unhappy, I think the human race should go extinct so that my woman can be happy. We need the women to be happy.
So,
who cares at the expense of everything
I
else
have a
on planet
question.
Earth?
If 80% of women that were giving birth were dying, but they were dying in childbirth, but their kids were living on, and that was the way to keep the world going, would you force those women to have children?
The entailment there of force, if you say, would I make laws that were stationed for them to have massive incentives to do this, and you consider that to be force because there would have to be people around to enforce those laws, then
Like
yes.
what? Like what?
Like what?
Like what incentives?
For which thing?
So I'm saying in this hypothetical, because you have crazy hypotheticals, 80% of women that are going to have, let's say we had some disease, whatever, that 80% of women who gave birth were now dying in childbirth. And so a lot of them didn't want to have kids because if they had kids, they would die, but their kids would be alive and they would continue to flourish in society. You're saying that that's good for society to do that because we have to care about what's coming
Yeah,
next.
in that particular case,
how would you enforce that?
Yeah, in that particular case, you would have a higher duty to make sure, because that hypothetical actually isn't realistic. But even if I engage with it in a realistic way, if I just say, okay, let's just grant it, you still in that case would have a higher duty to keep the human race perpetuated, even at the expense of women, because
So
now you have to deal with men and women. So even under the prism of happiness, where you say, well, wait a second, all the women will be completely miserable then. It's like, yeah, but if this is all you have to go off of is that all the women will die the second that they give birth, they're necessarily going to give birth to men, which means your happiness index would still go up even under those metrics.
The happiness index would go up because there's people and like more people. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because they wouldn't exist otherwise, right?
Okay.
Men would exist otherwise.
You didn't answer my question.
I did.
In this hypothetical, how would you? So would you then force? Because you said you wouldn't use brute force to force these women to give birth. You said you would give them incentives.
Well, no. If I'm engaging specifically in the absurdum of this hypothetical, I would say then that yes, you would have a duty to actually use force, and that would be justified.
What would you do?
I don't know, make breeding facilities probably.
Force the women in there and then, okay, this is great. Yeah.
Can you tell me why that would be immoral under your hypothetical that you just asked me, which is, hang on, stop, let me finish. Can you tell me why it would be immoral under the hypothetical you just posited for me to put women in breeding camps and breed them?
Because my moral philosophy, I believe in the no harm.
Then tell me why. Tell me why it's immoral to do that.
Immoral to imprison, kidnap, rape, force women to give birth so that future generations can go on.
Yeah, that's just restating the question. Can you tell me why it would be immoral for you to do that?
Because I don't think it's moral to.
Yeah, it's just a restatement if you don't think it's moral.
Harm other people. You cannot harm living people.
Oh, you cannot harm. Don't people have to be alive for them to be harmed?
Yeah, the women that you're forcing into the camp are alive.
But if there's, by this metric of logic, I need you to understand that what you're doing is saying we're going to eradicate humanity so there will never be more people to be happy, because happiness is your metric here, right? Which means you're actually creating more harm by not locking them in the breeding pen.
I would say the absence of future happiness of future people is not as important as preventing suffering and harm to the people that are here by kidnapping them, raping them, and forcing them to have children and dying. I agree with that. I'm sorry, I just do. I don't think that the happiness of hypothetical people in the future, or even hypothetical in the future coming to existence, I don't think that outweighs kidnapping, raping, forcing women to have children.
Why not? Why wouldn't it outweigh that? If it creates, yeah, I know you put more weight, but you haven't told me why you put more weight.
That people that are actually conscious now,
but you're not listening.
Those people, then are you like you are the like.
This is hilarious. Like you're actually saying to me this. Here's what you're saying to me. You're saying future generations and their happiness don't matter. Right? Comparatively, what matters is what's going on currently. And if the actions that humans collectively take currently, right now, eradicate all of humanity, which then assures that there will never be people to be joyful or be happy, then one, happiness can't be your biggest metric. It's impossible. because
I
you would
never
want
said it
there
was
to be the
extreme.
most amount of living people who were happy regardless of circumstance. 2, can't be consequentialism. So what the fuck is it? What is the
That's
justification?
what I'm telling you. It's so, for instance, like when it comes to the environment, it's a scale. Like if it's not going to, but if it's not, if it's like, okay, let's make policy decisions so that we can keep our planet for future generations that are inevitably going to be here because people are reproducing. I guess you're saying they're not, but we are having children born every day. But that's different than saying that somebody getting raped, murdered, all of this so that future generations can flourish. I don't see, even by your moral philosophy, where in the Bible
You're just begging the question. You're begging the question again. You still have not answered. You posited the hypothetical, not me, to me,
if
and
you're
said, what would you do? I say, I would do X. You say that's completely immoral, but you haven't justified why.
I just told you why. I just
Why?
told you
Say it
that
again.
I believe that we
You
have.
I believe is justification. I
there's a-
believe in God. Am I justified?
I'm telling you, the harm and all of morality is about our beliefs. So you saying I believe, you're like, oh, you can't do that. There is no objective morality.
It's not epistemic
You have fun with
justification.
my
Just say I
I don't have
believe.
fun with my sky god. So it's all my preference, and your preference is to follow your book. We're all just talking about our preferences here. That's what we're doing. And my moral preferences tell me that it is wrong to harm, kill, and torture damn near current people. 80% of women in modern society.
Oh, does
so that
it?
future people can live. I don't think that's moral, and you think it is based on your moral philosophy, which actually I don't even think many Christians.
Well, if that's true, then let me ask you a question, right? Would you bind and torture 1,000 people right now if it would stop the Holocaust? Would you do that?
No.
You wouldn't? You just let 6 million people die horribly?
I mean, if you want to get into the trolley exercises
No,
here,
I'm asking, would you do it?
Super off topic. My question.
Would you torture, hang on, would you torture one person to do it?
To stop the Holocaust?
Yeah.
Are we going into the trolley stuff?
Answer my question. I'm testing your logic. Would you torture just one person to do it?
No.
No. Why?
Because I'm not a utilitarianist. I don't believe in utilitarianism.
So what's your epistemic foundation then for your morality? If it's not consequences, it's not duty, what is it?
You just said the same thing. There isn't an objective one. So is the debate about my personal? Do I have to be like, you are either a utilitarian, you are consequentialist, you are religious? Are you
well, you have to give me something?
My personal?
Yes. Well, it's your lady. It's your worldview. It's your worldview.
You tell me that they're not right because they're not objective, and I'm saying
no, I'm not saying. I'm not even asking you for an objective metric. Your metric right now are actually contradicting themselves.
Why?
Right. So in this case, you would have to say that you're like some kind of deontologist, and you believe that. So if I ask you, so if I were to ask you this question, I'm going to prove this. Hang on, lady, stop. I'm going to prove this to you. Do you think that it's the equivalent? Stealing one penny is the equivalent of stealing somebody's house?
No.
No. Why?
What do you mean why? Why is one penny?
Why is it not the equivalent of that?
Okay, this is the thing. Because you really want me to just give you a position, the way you debate is honestly like you find these questions that are really difficult to answer. And if I can't give you, so if that makes you feel better, I'm a moral non-cognitivist. That is my moral. That is my foundation.
And what's a moral non-cognitiveness?
You don't. It means that I don't believe in objective morality. I think everything is kind of based on our moral preferences. That's basically what I told you.
Okay. So if you don't believe in, so nothing's moral.
Moral intuition is basically what I think most of us are going by, including yourself. You're also
then okay, and that's subjective, right? Not objective by your metric, right?
Yes, it is subjective.
Okay, so then why should we listen to a fucking word that you're saying?
Why
should we listen to a fucking word if you're saying I have a subjective standard, and I'm trying to apply this subjective standard, and I think you should follow that subjective standard because
my position isn't that I have a subjective standard. My position is all of us have a subjective standard.
Yeah, that's worse. Yeah, that's
so by that metric,
follows then.
Who can we even that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Who by your standard, who the fuck could we ever follow for any type of anything?
You and your God. That's not what this country decided to do. That's not what our founding fathers wanted. So you maybe should get the fuck out and go into one of these patriarchal societies where they follow your moral philosophy.
I see. So the status quo is all that matters.
Moral philosophy. And as much as you want to have these hypotheticals, like that's the thing. It's like the least threatening thing ever. Obviously, I want my values to prevail in my society. And if my biggest threat is Andrew the Crucible sitting here being like, well, if all the men fought all the women, like it would just be, I'm like, great, we're gonna win. We're great.
No, you don't need all the men to fight all to women. You just need to have the institutions where the enforcement arm of men are, and then you win the game. It's very simple. And if you think that the right can't do that and haven't traditionally been able to do that, you're smoking crack, lady, because they're doing it now. Not only are they doing it now, but you see more of a political polarization. For instance, you saw what happened with Mulvaney. You see what's happening with various people across the nation. Hang on, let me finish. You got boycotts. You got everything. The right is beginning to mobilize.
Yes, and they didn't do it with, they weren't able to do with Nike, anything else, but cheap beer is something that I guess conservatives love to consume. And
they didn't collectivize. They haven't collectivized in years.
If you want to boycott beer, sure, go for it. I'm not threatened by that. I don't think you're going to come and take my rights.
Yeah, but the thing is like, I need you to understand what you're saying. You're saying to me that if we did come and we took all of your rights, hang on, I'm going to finish and then you can finish, I promise. If we did come, if the evil patriarchy did get the institutions and they did take your rights and they made you, they forced you to be inside of a home where they randomly like walked in and said, lady, you're going to have X amount of kids every single day. You say to me that since everything is a subjective standard, you can't even say that that's immoral. Do you realize what you have done? What you have got done saying is that there's no standard other than our own intuition. So if our intuition is that that's what you do, you have no argument to tell me that that isn't what you should do.
I agree. So that's why I'm like, thank fucking God that the lunatics like you that think you should be able to go in and murder and kill to keep.
I didn't say should.
Are the minority.
I didn't say should.
God, because you're also
didn't say that.
You have your morality that's supposedly objective that you can't get enforced. It seems like you can't get it enforced for shit. Is what's going to continue in the future. So
then
my question,
you have no business.
You said you'd let me
go ahead.
finish.
I'm sorry. I'll let you finish.
And my question to you now is to get us back on topic in me. All right. I am a 28-year-old woman, highly educated. I'm pretty fucking rich from OnlyFans. Why should I get into a relationship and have a patriarchal underpinning to my relationship? Can you tell me why I should do that in the United States in 2020?
In fact, I can prove it to you using your own logic why you should. Okay. Because if anybody comes to make you do that, you have no argument whatsoever from a moral standpoint as to why they shouldn't. That's why you should, because
nobody has a moral argument. My position is nobody has a moral argument because
exactly
you can have that.
Nobody has one. Nobody has one. Nobody has a single moral argument for why you shouldn't do that. So if they do, if the patriarchy does do it, and they do make you do that, you have nothing to say about that.
All right,
nothing.
So I'm going to turn it to you now. Can you tell me where you get your morals? Why is that morally wrong? Tell me why.
Sure. Andrew, before you answer the question, in about 4 minutes at the 1 hour mark, I am going to more aggressively bring it back to the initial topic. You guys are having good discussion, so I'm going to let it go for another 4 minutes, but then I am going to bring it back. So go ahead.
Okay, so my question to you, Andrew, is two. Well, number one, why do you think it's morally moral? Where do you get your moral philosophy? And also, how do you think that should be infringed on or enforced on everyone else? And then my second question is that I'm just going to be honest, me and most of the women like me, we're not worried about somebody coming into our house. I have like 3 guards before you even get to like 3
gates. Who are all men.
So my question here is that
where's your female guard? Do you have like a female guard?
The threat of a home let me finish. The threat of a home invasion where someone's going to come force me to breed is just not at the forefront of my mind. And so tell me a good reason, a real reason that I should live by your standard in my relationships and in my life in general, and what you're predicating your morality on, because I love moral philosophy.
Listen,
I've done a lot. What?
If you have done moral philosophy, and I actually don't even understand why you're asking me this question. The predication of why it's totally and completely justified for me to do whatever the fuck I want and anybody else to you is because you yourself say that you don't believe that there's a single argument in existence. Stop. Because you say there isn't a single argument in existence which you can offer as a refutation for why they shouldn't. So if you can't offer why they shouldn't, then why shouldn't they?
You didn't answer my question.
That is answering your question.
No, my question, you're asking a question back. My question to you is,
I didn't ask you a question.
Why do you think there are moral truths?
Oh, so you want to know my epistemology?
Yes.
Well, so for me, it's divine command, and it's based around divine command theory. Absolutely.
Okay, so for those of us who don't want to believe in divine command based on absolutely no fucking.
Yeah, why would you care? You don't have an objective argument
right?
against.
So I would even argue that
there's no argument actually
that further the well-being of society, and there are one thing
there's
that will not. You just don't know what
you
those things
can't
are.
make that argument because from your standpoint, there's no possible way for me to be wrong in divine command theory because you have zero justifications for any morality whatsoever make the bold claim that there's not a single argument which can be offered against me having divine command theory. You literally just said that.
That's what I mean. It's just stupid. Just like nobody else can have if someone said I'm getting my morals from Harry Potter and I'm going to go by the wizarding world of Harry Potter. I mean, I can't tell you why that's objectively morally wrong. You're just a fucking idiot to me. And I'm so grateful that
I love the fact that your argument is you're stupid. It's because you're stupid. That's why.
Like it to be structured. That's the reality of it. So my second question was, why should I, a woman in modern society who lives in a secular country, and that is a foundational pillar of my secular country, go by your divine command?
Because you don't have a single reputational argument for why you shouldn't. So therefore,
my reputational argument for why I shouldn't, that's not the way that my life or my society.
Stop asking me questions and then not letting me answer them. Again, I'm answering it as concisely as it can possibly be answered. The reason is because if you have literally no epistemology and offer zero refutations for why somebody shouldn't do anything to you, no arguments against it, no reason why you think it's right or wrong, and they do something to you, you can't tell them that that's wrong, or you can't tell them they shouldn't do that. You have no basis for an ought claim.
Okay, so this is the thing. You're taking my deep moral, like at the basis of my moral foundation.
That's right. Your foundations.
Therefore, I say, no, you should do things because that's what the laws say. And that's also, I believe, and I agree. It's what I believe. You believe in your God, and I believe that people should not harm other people because I think that overall, the well-being of society is not going to be facilitated by that. I also don't think for the well-being of society is good to live with the kind of morality that you have and your weird, twisted version of your divine command. Because I've never heard Christians say that they would be okay with raping and killing people.
Neither did I. I never made the affirmative claim I would. I asked a hypothetical to test your logic. I never made the affirmative claim I'd be okay with anything.
No. I asked you if you think that's okay. And you said that, if 80% of women were getting killed.
If there was a greater duty to the human, and every Christian would tell you the same thing.
So my question
let me finish. Every Christian would tell you, every one of them would tell you that we operate off of duty and virtue. So we're going to look at each individual situation, no matter how absurd the hypothetical. And it's easy for me to bite a bullet and just say there would be a higher duty then. And almost all rational people on planet Earth would agree, by the way.
Oh, yeah. All right. Okay. I just want this. I want to restate this. And I also want all Christians to also I want to know what most Christians would believe. It is rational and it is duty in my hypothetical to kill, rape, and force women.
Didn't say anything about killing.
That is the rational duty, moral, and that is the Christian response here. I don't think the majority of Christians would agree with you.
If you were to ask any rational agent, not just a Christian, but almost everybody who's a rational agent, if the perpetuation of the human species as an imperative was more important than a temporary condition of how women might feel, they would say,
a temporary condition of how women might feel. Because when in my hypothetical, you were talking about making them breed, and then you were talking about breeding facilities, and then having
based on what condition?
So I am
based on what condition?
You know what? I am totally fine.
This is fucking hilarious. You straw man a million times. It's your hypothetical.
I am totally fine with leaving this here. Your position is that a rational agent would think that's justified. My position is that it's not, and we could leave it there. Now to get back onto topic, because we're not going to go into these crazy hypotheticals anymore. Right now, 2020.
We just went into your crazy hypothetical.
Jasmine, that's what I'm saying. Jasmine, Jafar, I'm done with them. 2020. I'm okay with leaving it there because your position is actually so fucking insane that I don't think there's more to be said. So in 2023,
your position is that the human race goes extinct, and you think that's rational.
Why should I? Because this is the society I live in. I don't have a moral foundation. My epistemology is not so fucking neat as to why this ought to be the case or whatever, but it is the case because that's what the question of the debate is. Mm-hmm. Is patriarchy healthy or not healthy? Not should it be if this society was actually the way it is? Should it be if the divine command was actually? My question is, what can you tell me right now? Mm-hmm. And my life and the women like me, why should we follow that?
Yeah, you just actually refuted yourself in your question. So your question that you asked me was this: even though I, Jasmine Jafar, have absolutely no epistemology, can't make any ought claims, nor tell you why anything is right and wrong, why should I comply with whatever it is you tell me I ought to do? And the
You're the
answer,
one
they
making the
actually,
claim.
hang
The
on,
burden is on you.
but
It's not on me.
I'm trying to explain.
On you. You're saying,
lady, you have to stop talking so I
can
can explain this to you because you don't get it.
Going
it's self-refuting. So you asking, lady, stop. You asking the question, and by prefacing it with, I have absolutely no moral objection to anything that you do, but why should I follow what you do? Well, then can we get to whatever that is?
I think I just said, I believe in generally my moral principle, which is based on my moral preference. Your moral preference is divine command. Mine is generally the no harm principle. And I don't believe that. I believe you should do whatever you want to makes you happy. Freedom. I believe in freedom. I guess you don't, but it shouldn't harm other people. That's my moral principle.
Okay,
now,
so the no harm principle, then can you clarify what that means? I'm just asking you to clarify this one thing.
So you're saying I should follow you. So I asked you, why should I do what you say? And you say, because it's self-evident in what I said. Is there any other reason? Is there any other reason why I should listen?
Why don't you understand this? If you make the affirmative claim that you, Jasmine Jafar, have no moral objections to anything that anybody does ever, and
then I should live in a patriarchy
and cannot produce one, then if somebody comes in and says, well, you're going to do this now, you have no moral objection, so why shouldn't you do it?
It doesn't even, my point is, it doesn't matter if I have a moral objection or not, because if these people come in and force me to do shit, it doesn't fucking matter what my epistemology is or what my moral philosophy is. If I'm raped and forced to breathe,
then how do you know what you should or shouldn't do, dummy?
My question to you is,
do you know what you should do?
Why should I have my relationship be centered or have patriarchal underpinning to my relationship? You're saying just because it's so self-evident because I don't believe in objective morality. So you're saying if there's no objective morality, then you should have patriarchy in your relationship. That's what you're saying?
Let me really quickly bridge the gap. I think, Andrew, what she's asking is, from a utilitarian or from a consequence perspective, why is your worldview or your system something that would be beneficial to her or beneficial to her family? I think that's what she's asking.
So I'll try to answer this again for like the 17th time, but don't cut me off this time, and I'll just answer it. Okay. If you were to say to me, why shouldn't I impose feminism on you? I'd say because of this objection that I have to it, this moral objection that I have to it.
That's not my question.
Just let me finish.
Right.
If you were to ask me, and you can ask as many times you want, but the answer is not going to change because of this. I would give you a refutation for why this ought not be the case. And
I'm not asking why ought not. I'm asking
why should I and let me finish so that you can't understand simple concepts. You're too stupid. Why can't you understand this?
Okay,
why can't you fucking understand a basic? This is basic logic. Basic.
Alex just
why don't you get it? Like, let me explain it. Just stop talking for a second so I can explain it to you. Okay. If you ask me a question, I can give you a moral refutation. If I ask you for a moral refutation about anything, about gum, about why you don't want to fucking pack a gum, whatever it is, if you have no refutation for why I shouldn't do that, then there's no argument to be had because you're just conceding I can do whatever the fuck I want.
All right. Are you finished? Okay. So I'm going to say again, your whole thing started with not even about morals or anything. It was about enforcement. So my question to you again is, if you don't have a way to enforce this, or we're in modern society, why should I listen to you? Should I only listen to you because I don't have a moral refutation as to what? Then if someone comes to me and says you should live your life as a furry, and I go, well, I don't believe in objective morality, so should I just live my life as a furry? Are you?
That's actually awesome that you just said that. So yes, the answer would be, if you have no moral objection to why somebody shouldn't live as a furry, I guess you should let them live as a furry, huh?
Yeah, I think I should let them live as a furry. I'm asking you why I should.
Wow, I can't. Did you just understand my point? Finally,
I do what you want. I'm not talking you're talking about enforcement.
Amazing.
You don't have an enforcement. You can't. If we're talking about this question, the crux of the debate is patriarchy healthy or unhealthy for relationships? You're like, well, we couldn't. Right now, you have no enforcement, right? You know that you have no way to enforce the shit you want to enforce. So what are you going to tell women right now, modern women like me, the ones that are running this fucking country? Tell me exactly why, with no enforcement mechanism, why I should listen to you.
I don't have to tell all all of the women who are like you anything because you have no objection to any standard I would imply.
This is not the fucking question. Alex,
I just answered it 50 times. Like, there's no better concise way I could answer this.
So then that's my point. You don't tell people that you should listen to what I say because you don't have an objective moral framework and I have a God. That's not how you get people to listen to you. I'm asking you why two people right now who are living in New York in 2023, and they're like, I don't know how to have our relationship. And you're going to say, well, you should do my way because my book says so. And she doesn't have a epistemology, like it doesn't have.
She doesn't have any objection to it. Then why wouldn't she do it?
That's my thing is do whatever you want. But if she says, actually, I don't really want a man to, I don't want there to be an imbalance of
then
power.
that's an objection. Then that's an objection. And then if you say, and then if you say to her, and then if you say to her,
moral objection,
stop talking.
That's just an
and
objection.
if you say to her, then if you,
I have a lot of objections too.
Lady, you're not listening. Then if you say to her, oh, okay, you have that objective. Why do you have that objective? And she goes, actually, I don't really have a reason why I have that. I don't really have a reason. I actually have no reason why I object to it. Then why the fuck would you care? Why wouldn't she do it?
I don't care. My point is, if she's sitting right here and she goes, I don't think I'd be happy, and I don't want my man to be the leader in the relationship. I want things to be equal. And you go, do you have a moral basis for that? No, I just don't want to live my life that way. Well, you still,
so that would be a presupposition.
Why would she listen to that? What the fuck kind of reason is that?
Because that would be what you're saying is that women have no logic then, because that would be a presupposition based on nothing. If you pointed that out and said, wait a second, are you presupposing something with zero justification? She was like, hang on. And she was like, yeah, I am actually.
Tell her, hey, actually, you should be the leader in the relationship and he shouldn't be the leader. And if she doesn't believe in objective morality, and I'm like, do you have a reason not to do that? And she's like, not really. Then why not have it be? Why not have it be that way?
Why don't you understand that you can make a subjective moral argument too? You just won't even do that. You just say that there is no moral argument.
Like I said in the beginning, in my opening, I believe that people should do what's best for them. You're saying they should do what's best for you. Based on what? Based on their preferences and what makes them happy.
So if it made everybody happy, to imprison,
hey, a patriarchal relationship doesn't make me happy. What do you have? What do you have that actually can make me convinced?
I'm going to answer your question again. I'll answer your question again.
Okay, again,
under your metric right now, you said the metric that I have, and I promise you said this, is whatever makes them happy. It's whatever makes people happy. So what if it made people happy to lock up women and abuse them mercilessly, and it made the majority of almost everybody happy on planet Earth to do this? What would your objection be? Why is and again, the no harm principle is based on what?
Freedom until it infringes on someone else's freedom.
What foundation? What?
Wait, okay. Alex, can you let me know, are we going to go down this? Because he just keeps trying to go down to the fact, but he's not answering my question. And I think I hope the audience can see this. I think it's pretty fucking obvious. I am talking about, tell me why in my scenario where I say, actually, you should be the leader. And she says,
it's self-refuting. That's self-refuting.
I'm going to bridge the gap again. Okay, so what she's looking for is, for example, it will lead to this kind of outcome. So she's
exactly
based argument, right? So you need.
We don't have to worry about the outcome though, because it's self-refuting. It's literally self-refuting. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Just that you should be in a patriarchal relationship because otherwise it's self-refuting. I don't think you're going to convince a lot of people, and I don't think you're getting.
I just convinced a lot of people tonight after they watched this debate. I promise.
Have at it then. If it's just so self-refuting, if your argument is everyone, you guys should be in a patriarchal relationship because otherwise it's just self-refuting, then okay, cool.
No, my argument to you. For your question to me,
answer Alex's question. Do you have an answer to Alex? You hate me, but what's Alex's?
Yeah, so I'm not debating with Alex. So I'm debating with you. So again,
but he told you the question I actually have. You won't answer me, or you won't answer him asking you my question.
Okay, you know what? Let's try it this way. Why don't you steel man my position, and I'll steel man your? No, hang on. Stop. Steel man my position, and I'll steel man yours. That way we know.
I will do so.
Talking. Just let me finish one point. If you steel man my position, I steel man yours, then we'll know we're not talking past each other.
No. I want you to answer my question first because you are sitting there.
I've answered it 4 times, and I feel like if you steel man it, you'll get the answer.
Why can't you just is this like a fucking puzzle?
I could not possibly have answered it more concisely. It's not even possible.
That has been my question for the last.
We're going to make a compromise really quick. I do like Andrew's idea of steel manning each other's position, so you guys will do that really quick, and then after that, you will redirect that same question to Andrew. I do think it's a good exercise to help make sure you guys are not talking past each other. So, Andrew, why don't you start off by steel banning Jasmine's position?
Yeah, Jasmine's position, it's kind of incoherent, but I'll try to get as close as I possibly can. She's saying that she thinks that we should do what's best for society based on a loosely formed harm principle. That seems to be what her argument is.
Andrew's position is that we should do what's maybe best for future generations based on his moral philosophy of divine command and whatever he thinks is best for the rest of society. Honestly, I like, it's really hard to even know our positions, especially when we're actually talking about the actual.
Did I do something wrong with your position, or did I get it correct?
About my position on the just in general, like that we should have a I think okay, here's my position, because I don't think you did a great job explaining it in one sentence.
Well, I'm just steel manning.
I don't believe that we have, unless you're going to do an appeal to an authority, which is a fallacy. I don't like to bring up fallacies in debates because I think it's dumb, but whatever, since you brought it in nature, an appeal to an authority is a fallacy. And you think that, what my position is that we don't have, because I don't believe things based on insufficient evidence. Believing in divine command is believing in something based on insufficient evidence. So that leaves us in a tough spot. And there are difficult questions in this life in a multitude of.
Can you steel man my position now?
What your position is that we've gone through so many different topics. If we're going back to the original, do you want me to steel man your original point?
How about I just tell it to you as concisely as possible? So my position is that you can't make any ought claims because you don't believe in morality at all. And you won't give me any type of justification for your morality. So anything that you say to me as an ought, why ought I do anything, is instantly self-refuting.
I didn't tell you ought. You're telling me ought. You're saying that I'm the one that said people should.
Aren't you asking me why ought people follow my
yes,
my vision?
And your position
it's an ought claim,
I'm not allowed to. You think that wait, am I crazy? Okay, now you have to answer my question, okay? Because you believe in ought. You believe in ought. So tell me why I ought in 2023 with the institutions we have in place now, where you have no enforcement for what you want to any couple in the United States of America. Why should people, this is what you have to do. You have to, maybe this is why you're losing, because you're going off into these abstract spaces.
I'm totally losing. It's bad.
You're losing I think there's no denying that that our institutions, like you had admitted, are following my principles more than your principles.
Yeah, but you're not breeding, so who cares?
How do you plan on changing that? I think one of the ways you could change that is by changing people's minds. That's why you're doing a debate right now. And the debate question is, you're saying that people should have their relationships based on patriarchy, or that there should be a patriarchal underpinning to people's relationships. And I'm asking you, what do you have to tell somebody like me? Because there's a lot of us like me, probably more like me than like you. What is your ought? Why should we ought listen to you? Doesn't matter what my underpinnings is. Doesn't matter why I ought not to, or why I can't not do this or not do. My question is, tell me, like Alex put it in a good way, give me some type of reason why in this society we should have our relationships like that.
If you cannot give me a disputation of any kind for why it is that I should not impose whatever I want on you from a standpoint of why it is wrong, then it is a self-refuting question immediately. You ought to do it because there's no, you literally ought to do it because you
have no power to enforce it. That was your original argument. You have no power to enforce it. It's not a moral claim, but it is a claim.
But you made my job really easy.
That is why people shouldn't listen to you, because you have no power. So now do you have an
argument? People shouldn't listen to me. You're the one making self-refuting arguments right away. Yeah, like your whole argument is self-refuting.
You don't have a reason not to. Like I said, then if I tell someone actually the woman should run the relationship, or if someone tells me a woman should run the relationship, I don't have a
reason why that shouldn't be the case.
So is that that's not how people think.
Yes, it is how people think.
Bringing you back down to earth. Why?
That's how people think.
Zero enforcement. Why should people listen to you?
Here's your question. Here's how fucking insane your question is.
Is right for them. Why?
Here's how insane your fucking question is. Excuse me, sir. Do you think that murdering people is immoral?
That's
no.
Not my question.
Okay, I'm going to murder you.
This isn't even a moral question.
I don't want you to.
What if we do this?
I think that's immoral.
That's
a question.
You know what?
That's what you're saying.
If I do it for you like this, will you step away from? I'm asking you, because when we started this debate, it wasn't even about morality. You were talking about enforcement of rights that was completely separate from reality. Did you not? So let's take morality completely out of this. Let's not talk about morality.
You can't take morality out of it.
Your initial argument, you're like, you can give me no reason. It's not that I can't give you a reason for it. I just can't give you a moral, objective reason for it. That is true. But that's not the only
Then
kind
why?
of reason
Then
you can give.
we
Not
shouldn't listen
every
to it.
reason
Then
you can give has to be an objective moral reason. There are other reasons.
Then give me a
For
subjective
instance, the
moral
fact that
reason
you
that's
have no
based on
power
something.
and you can't enforce it. So for my question to you is, knowing that you don't have the power, knowing you don't have the enforcement, knowing that our society is set up to actually have the relationships like this flourish and do well, why should we not do so? Why should we not?
I'm going to give you this lifeline just because I feel charitable, right? So I'll answer that how you want it answered, right? Even though I've refuted it 50 times, right?
Yes.
The reason that you ought to do this, right, is because I just think that my preferences are like better than your preferences.
Okay, if that's the reason, then yeah, good luck.
So do you don't have any objection then?
No, my objection is I don't think that's very convincing, right? I don't believe in objective.
But it's convincing from your angle.
I'm going to steal a line. I'm going to steal a line. No, let me finish. You asked me a question. I'm going to steal a line from Richard Dawkins. I don't believe in objective reality. I believe in intelligent design, where we talk about our morals, we debate them, we do all that. So right now, that's what we're here to do: debate what you think is right and what I think is right.
I agree.
I don't have a foundation for it. Your foundation is a sky god, so it's not much better, honestly. And my question to you is, why should people, when they have all the power, when they have the enforcement arm, why should they listen to you?
The same reason they're supposed to listen to you, because like it's just totally my preference.
I'm the one with the power. I'm the one with all the institutions having my back. So why should we listen to you?
So then anything that we do in order,
I'm gonna mute both parties. Okay, I'm gonna step in for a second. We've been stuck on this point, and you're mute right now. Okay, we've been stuck on this argument for about 15 minutes, and I think I want to move it forward. So Andrew, can you engage? I understand the point you're trying to make is that her argument is not logically sound. That's fine. Let's just, for the sake of argument, just say that, just take that aside. Can you engage in what she's saying? She's looking for consequences-based answer, right? Like why is, like, for example, your view on relationships superior from a consequences-based perspective? So can you just engage in that so then we can then move it forward? Because we're literally been stuck on this for 15 minutes. Okay, I'm muting both of you guys now.
I'm engaging with it in as good a faith as I can possibly engage with this question. She just literally conceded it a second time. When I said, what's wrong with me just saying it's my preference? She just said, well, good luck with that then. There's no argument from this woman. She has zero arguments.
Alex, let's leave it there. His argument, his answer to your question on why people should listen to him is because it feels like it, or that it's divine command.
The same exact as yours.
Answer, then there's no point. You asked it. I asked
it.
He can't. This is the answer he has.
Okay. I've answered it 50 times.
All right, that's your answer. All right, Alex, that's his answer. Chat, that's his answer. Everyone watching, that's his answer. Okay.
That's my answer, everybody. The same answer that she gave back at her. She has no refutations for it.
I am completely fine leaving it right there because
I'm gonna move forward like this. Okay. Let me redirect. So let me phrase the question like this to Andrew. This will kick off discussion. Andrew, just forget about the past hour and 20 minutes. Why do you can you outline like some reasons why you think the patriarchy is good for relationships? And then that will allow Jasmine to, I guess, engage in that.
Yeah. So the patriarchal order is always going to be good. And the reason for this is that there's a descriptive underpinning for objective reality. Now, I'm not talking about morality, but reality. And on the underpinning of the objective morality, you are always going to need enforcement, including at the micro level. Women can't enforce their own rights. So I think it's probably good for us to engage in what is objectively true and stop pretending that egalitarianism is true, because it's not. Women don't really have rights, as Jasmine conceded. Nobody has rights, as Jasmine conceded. All of us are just looking at enforcement, as she conceded. I don't even know what the hell she could possibly argue with.
All right,
at this point.
My argument back. Objective reality right now is that you guys don't have any kind of enforcement to enforce your patriarchal worldview in relationships. So why should we start enforcing that on ourselves?
Oh, but we do. And you have no moral refutation for it.
Okay, Alex just said we're not doing morals.
I'm engaging literally with this on just the descriptive side, right? We still have as many numbers as you do almost. We have the church authority and church institutions, which are almost as powerful as government institutions at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, yes, definitely they are.
Yeah, because not only that, church, for sure.
Yeah, but church is a mass community, which leftists don't have. Leftists do not have mass community anymore. Only churches do.
Okay, do you know, I'm going to just, maybe this is me going into a little bit of lawyer stuff. Do you know that the Supreme Court, what they say actually not only the rule of law in the states, but the church can't do something that the Supreme Court says they can't do. Did you know that? So my question to you is,
What does that have to do with anything?
That at the highest ranks right now of enforcement, the church
that's not enforcement.
The okay. Well, unless the churches and all these people that you're saying are going to come and again do the sword fight, my question to you is, right now in modern society, we have the power. We have the institutions. We have no laws. We have no anything that's saying that this is the way that relationships should be. And a lot of people are choosing by their own, they're making their autonomous decision that they don't want to be in this kind of relationship. So why is it good other than you saying it is objective reality that it's good? And that's objective reality that if men wanted to, they could enforce it. But it's also objective reality right now that the powers are in the institutions. And if you want to overthrow that, you have to overthrow the institutions. So until you can do that, until you can overthrow all our institutions with your little crucible revolution, why should we now listen to you?
Why would it take, I don't even understand. Why would it take a revolution for us to take back institutions?
Well, you were saying that you're trying to rally a group of people.
Yeah, to vote on stuff, right?
Doesn't even necessarily mean a constitution that says that our country is secular, unless you're going to get rid of secularism, which I think if you want to get rid of secularism, you do need a revolution.
She keeps freezing up. I don't even know what she's saying.
Pre-voting.
You have to repeat. You're going to have to repeat.
Sorry, you froze there for a second. We lost like about 20 seconds of that. Can you repeat your whole argument?
You lost what? How much? Like
most of what you said.
30 seconds back, basically.
Okay, sorry. Let me just.
You're good.
So my argument is right now, if you want to change things, right, you have to basically change our institutions. And you have to, if you want to really change things outside of secularism, I'm going to predict that you would actually need a revolution to make this country a not secular country. That's my prediction. But outside of that, before you lobby Congress, before the churches do their whatever they're going to do to change our system, right now in 2023, in this system, the objective reality is there is no enforcement. There is no means of enforcement.
There is enforcement.
Okay, where is it? Where is the enforcement that patriarchy is the way that relationships should be?
Well, because it's necessarily a patriarchy because men are the enforcement. So it's a necessary entailment to the claim.
Okay, so again, this is just circular because I'm saying like a woman like me, a young whatever woman is here and they're like, hey, I'm dating this guy and we don't have a patriarchal relationship. And you go, well, it's self-evident that you do because you just do. Like, is that the argument here? No. I'm asking you why, because clearly, as you know, there are plenty of relationships that aren't patriarchal, unless you're saying that all of them are. Then tell me
what I'm saying is that because what I'm saying specifically is that because society is already a patriarchy and all societies will always be patriarchies because of the underpinning of enforcement, that my ought claim is because this is true, this should be recognized, right? And it should further be promoted because it creates the most stable foundation because it's based the closest on what is objectively, descriptively true.
So then if it's already just the case and it's true, then you have no problems with the way relationships are today?
No, I didn't say that. Why would that even be an entailment of this?
You said that it's just naturally patriarchal. The society's naturally patriarchal. Well, clearly our society is saying fuck that. And
yeah, but there's a modality here.
There was one thing in there that actually.
Like, do you not understand what a modality is? Like, it can be more patriarchal, less patriarchal.
You said stability. Okay, I'd love to go there because everything else you're saying is bullshit. So stability, you're saying that that's an argument. You're saying, finally answering the analysis question, maybe that one thing
I've answered your questions 100 times.
One thing you could tell people is, this is the way we should set up a relationship because it's more stable. What is your evidence as to why those relationships are more stable?
Because all of the enforcement for all of society is coming from the men who necessarily have to protect the woman in the relationship.
Okay,
so they're a necessary stabilizing force for the relationship, regardless of circumstance. Anywhere you are on planet Earth at any given time is always going to be the men who are the necessary stabilizing force because they have the monopoly on force.
The problem is,
why do you not get this?
The men, you need the majority of men, right? It's not one man. And
no, we don't need the majority of men.
Okay, you need the men right now. They don't agree with you. That's my point. So you haven't gotten.
They don't have to. You don't
men
need
are
the
saying
majority
actually, men themselves, they're not on your side. They're like, I don't know.
They don't have to be. All that matters.
I'm okay with this.
I don't know why you don't get
You're
this.
saying no, because you could enforce it, but these men right now are enforcing what I say. So if these men are following my ideology, then these men, like you said, men can take away rights from other men, but these men are enforcing my rights, not the one you want. So what is your argument then? Your argument has to be that you have to take over these institutions. That's the only way. Otherwise, what other argument do you have? That's why I was trying to go into stability or something else.
But I've already told you.
It'll increase your happiness.
Yeah, but I don't know why you're restating things I've already said. I already told you that getting the institutions would definitely be part and partial for why, or a necessary entailment for how we get more patriarchy, or at least patriarchy instituted in the way I'd like to see it seen, is that we would have to move into the institutions. But do you need all men to do that? Of course not. That's ridiculous. And no more than you would need all women to promote feminism, because most of them didn't. Shut up and let me finish. I've been letting you prattle for hours. Just relax for a second.
Prattle for hours too.
So again, very few women actually wanted feminism. It was a very, very small percentage. Most women were against suffrage. And you did not need all the women in order to get suffrage. All you need is to convince enough people that, hey, you actually have the institutional authority the second that you want it. And you don't have to live like this. It's not actually as difficult as you're making it out to be.
What percentage? So let's say all the women are against this. What percentage of, and then there's a percentage of men that are on our side and your side. What percentage do you think we need to overthrow our institutions? And
Necessarily entailed in the hypothetical, if you say all women are against this, then from a democratic perspective, men couldn't do it, at least not from a voting perspective.
People, the only reason I was trying to put it in genders is because you think that men have more power than women. So I was saying, okay, let's say fuck all the women. What percentage of men do you need for this to happen? And my second question is, then would it be okay to say that until you make this come to fruition, then we can kind of form our relationships however we want because we have the enforcement?
You don't have the enforcement.
But
men still have the enforcement.
Okay, but the men, I agree with you. I agree that I think that, and there are a lot of men that are also believe in feminist principles. In fact, like I said, most of them. So my point is
most
that
of them do not believe in feminist egalitarianism.
Okay, a lot of relationships right now, the men aren't you. You're not reflective of, I would say, the majority of men. So my question is then, if you're saying that the enforcement,
yeah, but I mean, are you reflective of the majority of women?
How we should center our relationships. If you don't have that at this point from women or men, enough men to make your thing come true, then should we wait until then and then have our relationships?
But we already do have enough men. If you take a look, for instance, at the
Trump, why isn't it working? You're failing,
lady. Why won't you shut up so I can answer your fucking question?
One second. I'm gonna give a 10-minute warning before we move on to closing thoughts and call-ins. So just a 10-minute heads up. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So again, if you look at like what happened with Trump and Trump's election, right, which was a smack in the face against the feminist arm and the left-wing Democrat arm, that was mostly men who voted him in. Men do not vote alongside women on many, many, many issues. And as you can clearly see, more men are moving to the right via the trends. Women are moving more to the left. That's true. But as women get married, they tend to vote how their husband votes. Can we convince enough men?
Getting married less.
Now, hang on. Can we convince enough men over the next, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, as progressives continuously delete themselves from existence by not having children in order to push towards institutional power? Yes, we can. And we should. And that's exactly what I promote we should do. You can't even replicate yourself.
Your example was perfect. If the majority of men wanted Trump to win, and they even tried illegally, January 6th, to make it happen, and it still didn't work.
I'm not talking about that on YouTube.
But I'm saying
then use a different example. Use a king. Use a different example.
Even as men wanted that to happen more so than women did, it didn't work. Trump is not our president, and our democracy as of now is still intact. So my question to you is: you're believing that it's going to change in the future, Mike? Let's stop talking
you're still
about
not understanding the pivotal
right now.
You're still not understanding the pivotal underpinning. This actually makes my point again for me. So again,
you just say that to say that.
If men are not,
I'm fine with it.
If men are not making the enforcement arm on behalf of other men, if they're doing it on behalf of women, it's still men who are doing the enforcement. Still men, essentially, who are making the decisions that women have rights or don't have rights. No
then
matter
how
what.
come all the men that voted for Trump weren't able to make? Why couldn't Trump? Why did that not work?
Because the enforcement of other men who are part of the institutional power were able to suppress them. Men, it's still men. It's always
okay,
men.
but even if it's still men, your patriarchy only works if men want the patriarchy.
That's
That's
right.
my point.
That's
and so
true.
my point is, if in today's society, a lot of men, all of the men I know, don't want your society, they want my society. Why should we have our relationship?
Because absent an ought claim for why I shouldn't do it, we should absolutely be pushing as far and as hard as we possibly can forward. Shut up and let me answer your question. I listen to all your nonsense prattle, and the second I start to give you an answer, you cut in. So again, I'm going to try to explain this to you again. We should be pushing towards that. Just because it's not a descriptive reality right now that the right wing or that the patriarchal version of men or that the religious men are in institutional power doesn't mean we shouldn't be pushing so that they are. And unless you have a single argument for why we shouldn't do that, then there's nothing you have to argue at all.
My argument as to why we shouldn't do that is I don't think it's going to be best for the well-being of society. And right now, since we have that power, my question to you is right now, before people change it, why we're talking about relationships. Now, if you want to get into politics and you can say, yeah, you guys should lobby.
Because communists shouldn't have ever lobbied to get rid of communism.
You want even to say that they should invade the Capitol, go for it. My question is, what actually
nobody said any of this. You're just making shit up.
You don't have the enforcement arm. You currently don't have it. So my question is, if you currently don't have it, should we currently not follow it because there's no enforcement mechanism?
You currently aren't. So what's happening is as long as male enforcement favors whatever the agenda is that men favor, in this case, if men favor feminism, then that's still the patriarchy giving us feminism. It's not women giving us feminism. It's patriarchy giving us feminism. So we're still at the mercy, no matter what, of the patriarchy is a descriptive reality. Why do you not get this?
Let me try this then. What is a patriarchal relationship to you? And if it's a descriptive reality, then why aren't people living that way? So tell me, what is a patriarchal relationship?
They are trying to live that way. What ends up happening, though, is the rights of women get enforced over the rights of men by other men. We end up with this massive problem called divorce.
I don't even think a lot of rights
we end up with this massive stop talking. Fuck, you just won't shut up. Again, what ends up happening every single time, or at least now it's almost every single time, is this thing we call divorce. Divorce happens nonstop, right? So it's essentially the enforcement arm, right? In this case, patriarchal enforcement arm, right? Who's under the purview of your feminist ideology will go in and enforce your rights for you. We want the patriarchy to enforce the rights of my agenda, not of your agenda.
Okay, I see that. But my question, can you answer the question? What is, because I'm going to try it a different way, because I think you obviously think I'm fucking crazy, and I honestly, truly think
I don't think you're crazy. I just think you're stupid.
No, my question is, what is a patriarchal, what is a patriarchal relationship? What does that look like to you?
I think it would look the same way it would look to you. It would essentially be men are at the forefront, they're in charge, and they have the most rights over the family and the most duties and responsibility as well.
So even when we're talking about in general dynamics between men and women and rights in the family, a lot of that isn't even legally enforced in the first place. So my question to you is, if we're getting rid of all the legal stuff, why should people?
It is legally enforced.
What do you mean it's legal? So
let's say we have so I'll give you an example. Let's say we have like a patriarchal relationship, right? Or at least in your purview, what you consider one, I consider one to be. And the woman, like halfway through, they live for 5 years this way, and the chick's like, I don't want to live this way anymore, right? And so she goes and appeals to secular authority, and secular authority then involves enforcement to dissolve the marriage. It's actually not really a patriarchal relationship at that point. Right. This is an enforcement mechanism from women.
But I thought you said it was patriarchy.
Well, did you not hear what I just said? I said it's a patriarchal enforcement mechanism. When we're talking about patriarchy, though, we need to see men at the heads of families, at the heads of government, and we need to see them at the heads of all households. This would be the top-down patriarchal order.
Okay, so if men say that actually patriarchy to us is that men aren't the leaders and they aren't this, and this is what we want to enforce, is that a version of patriarchy?
So all societies are always going to be operating descriptively under some version of patriarchy. It's unavoidable. This is my point in my opening to tell you this, that all societies.
So if these men are saying that they're making the decisions according to you, but the decision that they're making is that we don't want to be the head of the family, we don't want these kinds of rights taken away or enforced, then isn't it just a reflection of the patriarchy that you're purporting exists, that your values maybe aren't the values of the patriarchy then?
No, it is possible in this particular case, it not only is it possible, but it happened, that over 70 years of feminist propaganda, that the patriarchal system, the adhere to patriarchal system, men actually have forgotten that any time we choose, we can simply take rights away from women. And it's always
You think
been the
men
case.
just forgot that it's not that they actually don't?
No, I said that they were propagandized into it.
Okay,
we
so
know that they were
they're brainwashed.
propagandized, and here I can demonstrate this with proof. We know that they were propagandized into this because you didn't start with these rights, and you didn't get them until recently. And the reason you didn't get them, the reason you didn't get them until recently is because you could not enforce them. So why would men give you rights you can't enforce?
Oh, well, black people only got rights recently.
Yes, men can take rights away from men, and men can give men rights. That's correct.
And that's what I'm saying. Because you're saying the men are the ones who give the right. So if men choosing, is it possible that they're not brainwashed or forgetting? Is it possible that this is a reflection of the patriarchal values that men themselves?
No, this is a value of feminist values and not of patriarchal values.
What if the feminist values? Because the
egalitarianism would be the feminist value.
The men are adopting these values, and you're saying that
they're being brainwashed. Yes, there are men who are
patriarchy.
There are some men who are brainwashed into believing egalitarian principles because they're unthinking, just like you.
Not brainwashed, or is it 100% they're brainwashed?
Yes, it's been. I can demonstrate the brainwashing for you over the last 70 years. It's been ongoing and nonstop. What wave of feminism? What wave of feminism are we on now? There's no brainwashing.
I'm not saying there's no brainwashing at all anywhere in society, but I'm saying it's not self-evident or it's not automatic.
It sure seems to be self-evident because if you agree with me,
we have now as a society, whether it's about race, whether it's about gender, are all a reflection of brainwashing. What if this is what people want, men and women, and we're in a patriarchal society where men are deciding what goes, and men are deciding that what goes is feminist beliefs? What if it's not brainwashing? What if that's just the way that things are, and that's the way men want them to be?
Listen, stop talking. All form of government thought is propaganda. You can see this in communism. Are you saying that communists weren't brainwashing people? Are you saying in North Korea? Stop. Are you saying in North Korea they're not brainwashing people?
Why are you not brainwashing?
Let me finish. Are you saying in every single nation on planet Earth that patriotism is not a form of brainwashing? Feminism is not a form of brainwashing? That from this time that you're a little kid, stop talking. From the time that you're a little kid in school, the fact that you're being leached and feminism is part of the very air that you breathe, and you're told about egalitarianism over and over, that we're all equal over and over. It's completely leached in to society, and you just pretend it doesn't exist. So the form of patriarchy that I advocate for, stop. I'm almost done, lady. The form of patriarchy that I advocate for is not even workable inside of. Stop talking. I'm almost done.
It really is workable.
Almost done. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Then he can talk. The form of patriarchy which I advocate for doesn't even work inside of secularism. By the way, secularism can't. It can't. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, or you wouldn't have a society that can't reproduce.
If that's your only argument, is that okay? Then just wait. Because apparently we're all going to come out of existence, and then when you're dead, then you can.
That's actually the plan. That's the whole. That's the right wing's plan. Is to slowly move towards institutional power as you breed yourself out of existence.
I think we'll just wait, and until then, I think you guys should live your relationships how you want, because as Andrew stated, the men are the ones who are enforcing it, and the men don't agree with Andrew, and the men agree that you should be able. Our country, our founding fathers, not even now, but before, said that divine command in Andrew's belief system isn't the one that they wanted.
Yeah, as opposed to absolutely nothing.
1 minute warning. Go ahead.
As opposed
to
literally nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I honestly feel like he's just basically saying, like, oh, this is just, it's clear brainwashing, but Andrew isn't brainwashing anybody, and that it's been men actually don't want this. They just don't know any better. And once they see the light, then everything will change. Okay, cool. Let's wait for it. But in the meantime, when we're running shit, when we're running academia, we're running media, we're running fucking everything.
Until you don't
I'm going to live how I see fit. And I implore everybody else to have your relationship the way you see fit.
And in fact, I actually agree that you should, because you're thinking yourselves right out of existence.
Okay.
Your birth rates are dropping so fucking drastically,
Cool.
and so many people are moving over. Only the religious are
Put
reproducing.
more women into breeding facilities, and then because every generation is thinking more and more like me. Younger people,
that's fine. You're going to end up dying with 5 cats and a bunch of dudes fap to you. Yay!
Producing, you should be able to counter that if you can
We
reproduce.
are countering it.
We'll wait it, because right now all the polling says that young Gen Z is even more progressive than millennials and every generation before that.
If they don't breed, what happens?
We're moving. Okay, we'll see. You're saying we're going to go through
if they don't breed, what happens? So you face. I want to let you. I want to let you know where the end of this goes for you guys, right?
Human extinction.
Because you concede that not human extinction. The opposite. It's ideological extinction. Because if you concede that most people tend to follow their parents' morality, they tend to follow their parents' religion, they tend to follow their parents' politics even, right? Then a necessary entailment of the left not breeding, and they're not, and they're going to continue that spiral down, is that you're going to inevitably lose power. And as I sit here and actually explain these things to leftists, explain them, and they see it, you're so ideologically set on a must-be whore that you can't even fathom that the next generation, the generation after, are going to literally wink out of existence because you can't sustain yourself.
I have 2 responses, and then I think our minute's up. Number 1, most educated people who do tend to lean liberal are the ones that actually they're actually having more babies than before. It's the poorer people that are having less than before. A. B. What was my second point? I forgot it.
Great. So educated people are going to wink out of existence.
My second point is that you're saying this, but every generation is always more progressive than the generation before that, and this trend has been going and going for a while now. So I don't know why you think it'll reverse or how it will reverse, but I will wait to see that. And hopefully, like you said, I just
have one more question for you,
and we're going to change the whole system. Great, and through the crucible, we'll wait for that to happen.
Do you have a I just have one last question for you.
I don't think
I have one last question. One last one.
I mean,
can you give me a single ought now that I've answered your question? Can you give me stop? Can you give me a single ought for why men should follow feminism?
Men should follow feminists because feminist ideology and the values that we purport have convinced them through reason, through logic,
propaganda.
You say it's brainwashing. That's your opinion. I'm saying it's not brainwashing.
You just literally said because propaganda.
Our ideology won in the marketplace of ideas. We won in the marketplace of ideas. We're continuing to win in the marketplace of ideas. And until you can change that, whether through enforcement or through the marketplace of ideas, we're the ones that are running shit. So I think that answers your question.
Right. You ought to do it because that's what's currently being done.
I'm willing to continue, but I also want to
fucking genius. What a genius response.
I'll let you refute it in your closing statement. Jasmine's gonna go first since you went first. You can totally sum up your thoughts. All right, Jazz. So anyway, this was a fucking heated debate. Very enjoyable. I enjoyed the contention. We're gonna get into closing statements now. Then we'll do super chats, and then we'll do some caller ins and stuff like that. Probably go for another 25, 30 minutes, not too long. So Jasmine, closing statements take, I guess, up to 5 minutes. Whatever your thoughts are, final closing thoughts. Go ahead.
I mean, I feel like this is derailed so much that it's just gone so many places. I don't even, if to take it back to the original question, are patriarchal relationships healthy for society? Like I said, luckily we live in a society right now where he wants things to change. Right now, they're not changing. It doesn't seem like they're going to change. Like I said, we hold most of the power, and I don't see as new generations are coming up, they're becoming more progressive. They believe in our values more and more. Our values are actually spreading to the rest of the world, actually, even in other like patriarchal societies. Example, my family's from Iran. You're seeing the younger generation in Iran becoming more secular, less religious, and they actually don't have the democracy we have. So they're not able to, at this point, have that reflected in their societies. But we are lucky enough. I am so privileged. I think I'm so grateful every day. I thank the universe all the time that the fact that I was able to be born in a country where we believe in secularism and we believe in freedom, and that we were able to convince enough people men and women, that this is a better way to live. And I think US is an amazing country. I think we're doing great. He thinks that we're on the verge of extinction. I do not think that. And I think that people should do whatever feels good in their relationships. If you're a traditional woman and you feel really great with your father the father of your children, or your husband having the authority over you, and you want to be the homemaker and they want to go be the breadwinner, have at it. I think that's a beautiful way to live. I also think it's a beautiful way to live to have two people working and to have nobody have more power or authority over the other, to have a partnership. I think that's beautiful too. My point is, my ideology doesn't hinge on everybody else following it when it comes to relationships. I think relationships are very personal. I think relationships, one of the foundational pillars of our country is the right to privacy, is the right that what goes on in people's individual households and their bedrooms and stuff isn't anybody's business. Andrew may disagree. I'm happy to live in a country where we believe in that. So however people want to have their relationships the way they see fit, that isn't harming other people, I don't think they have to worry about future, they have to go to the extent of getting in breeding facilities so that future people can live. I'm personally not too worried about someone like Andrew gaining enough power, whether it's political power or just power of the masses, to actually implement any of his views. And all of the evidence shows me more and more and more, except for beer companies, everything else shows that my ideology is not only what's on top, but it's continuing with future generations. And I think that's all I gotta say.
Andrew, you are up.
Yeah, so you saw that Jasmine almost thanked the God that she doesn't believe in to live in the egalitarian nation that is so good that she can't give me a single justification for why you ought to live in one yourself or follow egalitarianism at all. She can't give a single argument for anything. In fact, she never gave a single argument for one thing. She never gave a single argument for her moral oughts. When I turned her hypothetical back around for her to answer it, she said you shouldn't even do that. According to her, there should be no secular, or at least she says women like me, there should be no objection to anything that anybody's doing at any time, anywhere, because she has zero refutation to tell a person why they shouldn't. None, not any, not even a little bit. She couldn't offer anything. It was like stunning, and didn't even understand that she was refuting her own arguments every time that she made one by saying that she has no justification for why you should do that other than her own personal preference. That's the only justification she needs. If that's true, as I rightly pointed out, then whatever my preference is has to be equally as true. She points out, yes, that's true. And it's like, well, then what the fuck is this all about anyway? Clearly, anything that I'm doing and want to impose on any part of society is 100% moral from her perspective, because she can't offer a single argument for why it wouldn't be. Not a single one. And when she does object, she says my objection is hollow because I have no moral argument to give you with the objection. So thing is bad. Why is it bad? Because I don't, because it is. It just is. I don't like murder. Okay, but why shouldn't we murder people? I don't know. I have no idea. Right? This is how dumbasses think. Okay, what you need to do is try to understand that not only that, she couldn't give a refutation to the descriptor of society. She actually agreed with my descriptor for how society works even, right? The whole debate was conceded from the outset, and the only thing she can hang her hat on was, but descriptively right now it's this way, which has nothing to do with anything at all. Why would how it descriptively operates right now have to do with how we want society to look? Has nothing to do with it. Absolutely fucking insane. It was one of the most insane debates I've ever been in because of the unawareness of the opponent as to what she was even saying. But anyway, with that, I'll concede the time, and no hard feelings, right?
Yeah, no, that's
I appreciate the debate.
Yeah, let's just end it there. I'm happy with the way this ended up. I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think it was. I feel like it was great.
So I actually wrote down. I want to ask both of you guys an interesting question that it's going to be separate questions. It's kind of things that I was thinking about as the debate was going off. So let's just start with you, Jasmine, since Andrew spoke last. So I would want to flip the question that you were trying to ask Andrew. What are some consequences-based arguments for why the patriarchy is bad for relationships?
If you remember, my original opening was not that it's bad or good. I think it's dependent on the people in the relationship. So some people lean, I think, in traditional, like they have a proclivity towards traditional gender roles. And I think that's great. And I think there are certain people that don't. And I think a society that allows for both type of relationships flourish like this one is better than one that forces everybody to do one thing and everyone to do another thing. Because even though we may have like there may be more men that are more that have more of a proclivity towards being a leader or the authority in a relationship, that doesn't mean that that's everybody. And there's actually a ton of overlap. And I think allowing for that, let's say it's even 70-30%, I think that it's good to let that 30% or whatever percent, I think it's more than that, live their lives how they see fit. I think our society is doing better than most patriarchal societies. I think a lot of people want to come to this country for a reason. And one of those reasons is the freedom to be able to live their lives how they see fit.
I'm talking more on a macro perspective, not a micro perspective. So the U.S. can either be patriarchal or not patriarchal, right? The society can be that or not. So from a macro perspective, would you say there's any detriments for the society overall from macro perspective to be patriarchal when it comes to like individual relationships, or no?
If like you're saying, if like for there to be some people who are in patriarchal relationships, or like just everybody
I'm talking about society as a whole, like
as society as a whole. So do you think that I think that society as a whole should like enforce or to promote patriarchal relationships? Is that more of your question?
No, if we have a full on like patriarchal society, right?
Okay.
How do you see that negatively affecting people's individual relationships? Like we're not talking society forcing. We're talking about like all of the representation, for example, in Congress and people in positions of power are men, right? We're talking about that type of society, right?
Yeah.
Society was like 100 years ago, right? Like,
yeah. So yeah, I don't think that's good because we are 50% of the fucking world, and we have brains, we have the ability, we have skills, right? There are some skills we do better. Like for instance, women, companies run by women are less likely to go bankrupt than companies run by men. But companies run by men, because they're less risk averse, they tend to sometimes make more money. What does that tell you? I think that tells you that we want both types of people in the world instead of just having one type of person, right? I think more male teachers are great. I think more female engineers are great. Women, clearly we have the ability where our test scores are across the board even higher than men. So clearly, like even my profession as a lawyer is almost 50% women. And I think those women are performing and doing their jobs as a lawyer just as well as men are. So I think it's good. And if the women on the Supreme Court are just as capable of being there as the men, I think if we're going to live in a real meritocracy, which I think is a good idea, then the people that are best equipped for the job should do it. And eliminating half of the population, I don't think is a good.
I got a quick follow up right there. Is there any behavior at all that does not follow on this threshold of harming somebody else? Just any independent behavior?
Is this even I
just want to know the answer to this. Is there any behavior at all that doesn't like hurt somebody else that you would say is bad? Anything? Incest, necrophilia, any of those things?
So there's a behavior that's detrimental to yourself, like eating too much junk food. Like I wouldn't say that that's something that I would say is a good thing for someone to do, but it's not my fucking business if someone wants to eat a bunch of donuts into.
What about necrophilia? Is that any of your business?
I would say that there is harm in doing that to the dead, because obviously if that person, like they have
What if they consent? What if they consent beforehand that they want their dead body molested?
If they consent beforehand, honestly, then sure.
Then necrophilia is okay for society.
If the person like literally is like, when I die, and they're of a state of mind where they can consent to it, sure, yeah.
And twin brothers having incestual relationships with each other, twin sisters, that's fine.
As long as there's no procreation involved, I can't say that it's morally wrong. No.
Can you say any behavior? Can you say any behavior is morally wrong then if it doesn't cross this threshold of hurting somebody else?
If it doesn't harm somebody, I don't think I could say it's morally wrong. But your whole point with me is I can barely say anything's morally wrong. So.
Okay,
that's true.
You're obsessed with this question. I think we've done it. We've done this for almost 2 hours. It's not even super relevant to the fucking thing. But if you want to go on, I will do a separate debate with you again, Andrew. Even though you're insufferable about morals, but that wasn't the question that I was asking.
All empirical claims have to do with morality.
Okay.
Let me hang on. I want to,
or not empirical, but all claims you make are going to have a moral foundation is what I meant to say.
Okay,
Sorry.
Okay. Anyway, so I want to ask Jasmine that question, and then here I have a question for you, Andrew. It's going to be a two-part question. So do you think we should always do what's good for the collective and future generations?
I'm sorry, was that a question for me?
Yes. So do you think we should always do what's good for the collective and for future generations?
No.
Okay. So then the follow-up question is, how do you determine whether we should do that thing or not do that thing? If like what's the litmus test that we're using?
Yeah. So there would be essentially a hierarchy of duties and virtues, and this would fall under divine command as well. So there could be certain aspects which would be really, really bad, for future generations. Let's say if you implemented maybe some sort of duty that they had to adhere to, that we would say was okay.
How do we determine the duties of hierarchies?
Well, because we have church history, we have the Bible, we have divine command, we have divine revelation.
Okay, so you're basically full on theocracy, right?
Well, it wouldn't be a theocracy. It wouldn't be necessary. Most people's morality and the way that they legislate is informed by their upbringing and their religion. So almost every law that you see is a reflection of that, in fact. So even the Constitution, which was based on Anglican ideas, is based on their kind of bizarre mixture or admixture of, like the Schofield Bible type thinking. So this is almost everybody's morality, and how they govern is going to be informed by their morality.
Do you think that soft drugs should?
Sorry, I have to. Somebody's at the door. I'm gonna go get the door. I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure. Do you think that soft drugs should be legalized, like marijuana, mushrooms, stuff like that?
I'm neutral on it. I don't care if they are or they aren't.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You answered this question actually a little differently than I expected. So yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So I mean, mushrooms, yes. But like if you're talking about like I don't know, maybe marijuana or something like that, I could say that I'm probably neutral on it, though I think that I could be swayed one way or the other.
So are you saying that you don't think that shrooms should be legalized?
Yeah, it's not psychedelics, no.
Why would you say that?
It's because it alters the brain state to the point that it's actually not even dosably controllable very easily. And we still don't really understand the long-term ramifications of psychedelics. The MK Ultra program, for instance, utilized psychedelics often in order to make people more palatable to mind control. That's actually true. They really did do that.
Yeah.
And they also pushed out, or it was talked about pushing out these things in water and things like this to make people more susceptible through microdosing to the power of suggestion and propaganda. So I think that, those are awful. Now, there's people in my chat yelling, saying weed could have the same effect. I doubt that it has the same effect to that degree. You know what I mean? But
I agree that the MK Ultra program is not good, but I'm just talking about more on a broad basis, aside from like evil government programs. Yeah. Like the point you made is that it alters brain chemistry, but doesn't alcohol do the same exact thing? And hasn't alcohol caused way more deaths than
alcohol is controllable? So alcohol is consumably controllable. You can drink alcohol and not even get drunk, or you can drink alcohol to the point of absurdity and get drunk to the point where you can't even control yourself. I would say that that's bad.
So
you know what I mean? But alcohol in and of itself and the intake of it, no, that's not bad.
So Andrew, if shrooms could be controlled, like we could control to the same degree as alcohol, then you'd be okay with legalizing it?
No, I still think that there could be a potentiality to the mind where it opens you up to things that other types of drugs like that don't. The drug in and of itself, if you're talking about like just taking a drug, it's not even the addiction necessarily that is problematic or sinful. The addiction itself is not what kind of the issue is. It's because let's assume for a second, like you can become addicted to a behavior. Like I have a friend who's a musician. He could become addicted to playing the guitar to the point where he falls away from God. Things like this also fall under those same purview, right? It's not that the addiction itself even, the vice is the problem, but whether or not it's moving you away from the relationship with God. And this is why you have spiritual fathers to help guide you through this, because each individual person, how they interact with different drugs, different things like this is going to be completely different. There, I could conceive, for instance, of a person, I could say like cocaine's mostly morally bad, but I can conceive of a person who maybe participates in an experiment to demonstrate the side effects of something like this, where I could say maybe it's not morally bad, and that would kind of be at the discretion of their spiritual father. I think that makes sense.
I will ask one last follow-up question on this. This is an interesting discussion. I think you and I should do at a separate time. Would you say that alcohol, for the vast majority of the time, moves people, especially drinking to excess, moves people further away from God?
I think it definitely can, but I don't even think that drinking to excess sometimes does that necessarily. I think that being an alcoholic does that. I think that your priest would tell you to stop being a fucking alcoholic because it's bad for you
Well,
and it takes you away. So
like, let's say you're like non-alcoholic, right? Like someone like me who doesn't drink, but let's say I get really drunk. I'm more likely to engage in sinful behaviors. I'm more likely to cheat. I'm more likely to drink and drive. I'm more likely to start a fight, right? Like even for a non-alcoholic, you wouldn't say that like getting drunk to like.
yeah, you probably shouldn't get drunk. But on the other hand, if you did get drunk and engage in none of those behaviors and you only did it every once in a while, then who would give a shit?
Right. But then you could make the same argument about like psychedelics, right? Because if you did not like, let's say it brought you closer to God, like you spend the whole day praying when you were on shrooms, like then that would be okay.
Yeah, well, the church's or I would adhere to the church's authority on this, and they say no, that's absolutely not the case, and that is part of our religion is to adhere to church authority. Every single plant that you engage in on planet Earth is going to have a different effect on you than other plants. And these are things that have been around for an awful long time. And it's not really at your discretion as to whether or not you can imbibe these things. That's why you have the church authority to help guide you.
Okay. I'm not going to derail the debate too much with this, but this is an interesting discussion. I think we should.
Yeah, I'm happy to come back and have it.
Okay. So anyway, let's go through the super chats really quick. Alex, you should ask Myron who did his hair transplants because he needed one forehead looking like a 5'8". I do appreciate people giving me money to criticize my hair. Feel free to give me all the money you want. If you give me a 50, you can criticize whatever you want. I don't care. Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to read any super disrespectful comments, just a heads up, regardless of the money amount. Andrew, divine theory has been defeated by a throughput dilemma. If something's good only because God said it's good, then your morality is arbitrary, will condemn God when he. Okay, I'm kind of lost by this question, and maybe this.
The Euthyphro dilemma are things good? I think it's Plato. Are things good because God says so, or does God command things because they're good? It's like it's one of the like fallacies of religion and God. But I mean.
So Andrew, do you have like an answer?
Yeah, so I'm happy to dive into that, but the explanation is going to take an awful long time. But if you want to hop in the Discord, have that conversation, something like this, there's actually no fallacy present, but I'm happy to do so.
Okay. Andrew, what is your moral ought why egalitarianism is bad for society?
Well, it's not as far as a moral ought goes. It's not even a moral ought. It literally doesn't and cannot even exist. It can't even exist. Egalitarianism is it's a hoax. It's not even possible to have. It's some made up bullshit.
Then I think the way things are going to be how they continue to go.
Question's not for Jasmine.
Okay.
So
sorry.
Anyway, I don't even think that it exists. I don't even think so. When you ask me the question, it's somewhat incoherent, right? Because you're asking me to make an ought claim against something that I don't even think is descriptive reality, right? I don't even know how to engage with it.
Okay. Ask Andrew why every society that gives women rights is forcing while those that don't is not. And if I'm wrong at the point the country is ideal. Do you understand the question?
I think so. Hang on. Let me reread it. Why every society that gives women rights is forcing and those who don't is not.
I think he qualified. Okay. He ask Andrew why every society gives women rights has flourished while everyone that has not has been struggling. And what is his ideal country? Okay, there we go. They're
not actually flourishing. So in fact, the nations which gave women rights are not even able to sustain their own populations. They have to bring in mass migration from other nations to keep their population level even stable. And where are they pulling from? Pulling from all those nations, those religious nations that breed. That's where they're pulling them from. That's where they're getting all of those migrants to replace their population over X amount of time. You're not even going to have the core groups left in any of these countries. They're all going to be, it's going to be completely disproportional. And it actually has to go that way. It has to go that way. So no, they're not flourishing. There's an illusion based on technology due to technological advancement that there's some type of flourishment because women can be loud, obnoxious bitches on the internet. But there is no actual flourishing going on in the West. It's a decaying society, in fact, where population collapse for many of these nations is imminent. It's an imminent population collapse. Now, that doesn't mean the population goes away overnight. It just means that there is an eminent population class which is coming, the age demographic which you need to subsidize the 5 generations after and the one before, which is this key demographic of like 19 to 30-year-olds, it's disappearing. So they can't do it. So no, I reject the premise. I would say you can't flourish in a society that can't even sustain itself. That seems like it's the opposite of flourishing.
What is your ideal country? That's the second part of the question.
Well, my ideal country right now really doesn't exist. I would say that what would be ideal would be something close to the ethical system of the Byzantine Empire, though there were some problems with that as well. But ultimately, as the West collapses and population collapses, the kind of societal properties that I'm talking about will become emergent because they're self-apparent. They're literally self-apparent, and every single nation from the ground up, they'll always start and fixate under a patriarchal system because they must in order to survive. And then over time, when egalitarianism seeps in and these sorts of wild ideas seep in for equality, that's when you actually start to see this kind of decadence and decay. And then over time, they collapse. They always collapse.
So if you had to pick one country right now that you think is really like, I understand none of them are perfect, but the one that you think out of all the ones is the best, which one would you pick?
I would look at the Eastern Bloc, the old Eastern Bloc nations for better kind of moral prescriptions to this.
Like what?
But they're not perfect by any metric because they were under the yoke of the communists. So they did move back to kind of their traditional settings. That's true. But because they were so ravaged by communism, many of their nations are still in a state of disarray, 30, 40 years behind in many cases. So I do think that some of those countries, though, do have prescriptions that are at least beginning to work on their birth rate issues, and they are beginning to push those up. So I just think that from a moral standpoint, this would work fine inside of the United States, but there has to be some kind of incentive and push to reproduce your population, or you're not going to have a population, right? That's just the way it is. It's just basic math, right?
Okay. I have so many follow-up questions, but I don't want to derail, so we'll just move on to the next super chat. The winner is still undefeated for the heavyweight debate champions, Andrew Wilson. We actually did a poll and came out pretty close. Panel, thoughts on paleo?
Yeah, who won the poll?
You won by about 8%.
But yeah, this is your audience.
No, it's not my audience.
It's my audience.
Yeah, but you're also in like the.
They hate me. They hate me.
No, that's not true. My audience has a weird crush on you. No, Jasmine, out of all the people who debated Andrew, and I've done poll, you've done the best, I believe, aside from maybe Destiny. So, yeah. Panel, thoughts on paleo-liberalism? It refutes the feminist ideals that encourage authoritarian use of state, enforces differences of sexes, currently rejects misogyny. All right, let's start off with, I guess, Jasmine. What are your thoughts on paleo-libertarianism?
I've never heard of that. So
I've never heard of that either. Let me Google it. Libertarianism. I think I've heard this term before. Okay. Is a libertarian political activism strategy aimed at uniting libertarians and paleoconservatives? Okay, so it's like anti-war, it's like anti-neocon, it's like isolationism, basically, type of where you can basically do like what you want as long as it doesn't hurt other people. Like drugs would be legal, there would be no involvement in wars unless we were directly attacked. That would be kind of, I think that's the gist of it. The opposite of like neocons.
So what my question is, what do I think of that?
Yeah.
I think like broadly speaking, it sounds, but like I think when you get into the intricacies and the details, like I mean, running a society is difficult, especially with this many people. So it's cool to say, oh yeah, just legalize everything and just be free. But obviously, sometimes the consequences that come out of that do require us to pivot and make the decisions that we think is best for the well-being of society. I don't know what else to really say about that.
Okay, Andrew, what's your take on that?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question one more time
Sure.
for me? I'm sorry.
The thoughts on paleo libertarianism.
Oh, it refutes feminist ideals that encourage authoritarian. So paleo-libertarianism, though, is something of a contradiction because in a stateless society, the whole goal of libertarians is supposed to be the tails end coin to the goal of communists, which is a stateless society, which means no enforcement. So if you're kind of moving into the opposition of enforcement, and paleoconservatism would say, no, we need to embrace enforcement in order to have a stable society. What is actually paleo about it? What are you moving back to as far as libertarianism goes? Because that's never been successfully implemented anywhere, even on the islands where they say that it has been, it really hasn't been. There's still always a mechanism of state enforcement. So I don't think it's a good idea, though it's a good refutation of feminism. It's not a good, solid, core base idea on its own, I don't think.
My quick thoughts is I tend to lean more libertarian, but I'm not a big fan of like the hardcore anarchist libertarian where it's like, oh, bro, everything will take care of itself. Like the government should basically be as small as possible. I think the government is necessary for certain things. You need the government to come in and, enforce, for example, safety regulation. You can't just have companies putting whatever they want in like shit, right? And selling it to you and lying to you about it, which we had that in the 1800s. Like they would just sell medicines that would kill people and all that. So you do need some regulation. The free market doesn't take care of everything. But when it comes to social things, I tend to lean more libertarian. Anyway, here's one last question. This is actually an interesting one. Is alcohol or OnlyFans social media more damaging to women today? I guess it's a question for both of you.
More damaging to women today. I do think that social media, I don't like OnlyFans / social media because I don't think they're like one and the same. And when you do so I would say social media, there is good evidence that, especially when people spend a lot of time on it, that it's bad for you. Now, I think both of these things are okay in moderation. It's only when it becomes a problem, which both of them can definitely be a problem. But I would say more people are negatively affected by spending too much time on social media than women have a problem with alcoholism. I think men actually generally have more of a problem with alcoholism than women do.
Okay. Andrew?
OnlyFans.
Okay.
Not just OnlyFans by itself, but it's a curtailing into, or not a curtailing, but a movement into kind of a greater degenerate society in which we're kind of viewing things as a meat market, and we're viewing kind of this independent goal of do as thou wilt as being some sort of high value. There's nothing high value about OnlyFans. There's nothing virtuous about OnlyFans. There's nothing virtuous about prostitution. There's nothing virtuous about any of these things. And there never has been. And always everybody in life that you meet who you say that to, if you say to them you're a prostitute, or you say to them that you're involved in OnlyFans, which I consider to be just basically a form of prostitution. I don't think most people would disagree with that assessment, but that's basically what it is. Instantly are going to see you as a virtueless person. And I don't really blame them. It seems reasonable to me to assume that a person who engages in those activities has low virtue. So I think that if the entire society was all alcoholics, everybody in society was alcoholics. It was like Ireland, right? I'm kidding. But even if it was, I still think it would be less detrimental to society as a whole than the mass porn industry and what it's done to the relationship dynamics between people.
Okay. Anyway, so we're going on 2 hours and 15 minutes. Initially, the plan was to do call-ins, but I don't really think we're going to have enough time for that. As you guys know, I got to make it to Whole Foods before they close. So let's do, I guess, I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. Let's do, I guess you guys can both plug your channels and whatever it is that you want to promote. So, Jasmine, do you want to tell people, I guess, where they can find you?
Yeah, well, in this free degenerate society, you guys should subscribe to my OnlyFans. You guys can go to jasminejafar.me, and that has all my socials. My OnlyFans is Jazmen00, JAZMEN00. Well, I will continue to do what I like to do. And luckily, he's right that a lot of people don't like OnlyFans, and they have assumptions and they have negative attitudes towards OnlyFans. But I think just as many people, if not more, have negative attitudes to like his ideology. So I'm pretty happy with the way things are sitting. I'm okay. I'm not worried about anything like that. So yeah, come follow me.
Cool. Andrew, where can you find your OnlyFans?
Well, you'll never be able to find my OnlyFans because I'm not a fucking degenerate. But you can find me on The Crucible, the fastest growing, again, to my knowledge. There could be another one that I just don't know about, but the fastest growing debate channel anywhere on YouTube. Alex, once again, thank you for hosting me on your great channel. I've been here a bunch of times. You've always been a fantastic host. I disagree with your moderation sometimes, but I feel like everybody gets to bitch about the moderator occasionally, right? So anyway, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody in Alex PWF's chat, and I appreciate my opponent for accepting the debate and having such a spirited back and forth with me. I don't take any of this personally. I hope you don't either. It is my job to represent my side the best way possible.
Yeah, and I want to thank Alex and you as well for having me on. This was my first time on your channel, so maybe I'll be back on in the future. I'm more than willing to do that. Yeah, I'd love to. And thank you, Andrew, for like you said, the spirited back and forth. And I hope both of you have a wonderful rest of your night.
You too.
And everybody else in the chat too.
All right, for sure. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Bye.